Here we go.
Oh, we're not yet?
We're on.
All right. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This is the October 5th, 2020 meeting of the Millis Select Board. Present this evening are myself, Jim McCaffrey, I'm the board chair, Pete Germain, who's our vice chair, and Erin Underhill, our clerk. We also have Karen, I'm going to call her Karen Underhill, but that's not the case.
You're close. Beret it is.
Karen Beret,
It's not just me.
who is our operations manager and MC. And I haven't, is Mike there? I haven't seen him yet, so.
He's here.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
There we
And
go.
Mike Kaczynski, who is the town administrator. So again, welcome to all. I wonder, at this point, I don't have any announcements to make. Is there anything that one of my colleagues would like to make this evening?
I do not have one.
No. I would like to acknowledge that we will be sending out our Jim. Or Mike, do we have the correspondence regarding the water treatment?
Yes, that is just being finalized. I believe that will be sent out later this week.
Be mailed out Wednesday afternoon, and everybody should have it by Thursday.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of the fact that the memo's coming out. It's explaining the situation, as we've discussed at several meetings, about an issue we have with one of our wells. It's a required correspondence that is being sent by the Millis water system, basically, with the help or the heavy hand, depending how you want to look at it, of the DEP. But we urge everybody to read it. If you have questions, please feel free to call the DPW or the town administrator's office, and we'll try to be responsive as we can be. With that said, I would like to now turn to an issue that has come up several times in passing, and this is in regard to Halloween trick-or-treating activities for the folks here in Millis. Tonight we have a report from our friends from the Board of Health, as well as Chief Sapphire, I believe. And then I'd like to ask the director of our Recreation Department, Chris Fogarty, to highlight a couple of activities that she's sponsoring so that the community is aware of them. So, John, I don't know if we have anything new. I know we move into a different phase, all of which is good news, but it's not quite the same thing as what we want to be, which is out of the woods. But do you have anything you want to add? We talked about it last week, but we also talked about your effort to identify resources that parents and others could look to get the information they might need about safely holding the Halloween holiday.
This is John, Board of Health. Just as a quick rundown, something go. Oh, okay. A quick rundown on some of the numbers in COVID. We're currently going with the color mapping system, which if you're not familiar with, you can get that at the state DPH website. Basically, it's a risk level map. Currently, Millis is gray, which is the lowest risk, which is great, which allows us to get into phase 3, step 2, which the new standards came out with the governor, and actually they start today. The host of new standards or updates on the standards, which relax most of them. Going into the fall season and winter, we're seeing a gradual uptick in cases from August, which is expected. So we're trending upwards as far as cases go. So hopefully it plateaus out, but just be aware that that's the trend so far early in the season. That being said, let's see, for the Halloween, the information on Halloween, we were given some information from DPH on safety tips, which is up on the screen now, and basically goes through the risk levels for Halloween activities. I think Halloween can traditionally go on as it normally has, with some modifications for trick-or-treating. There are caveats to that, but I think that what they're trying to avoid is large gatherings and costume parties and crowded indoor events, things of that nature. This is kind of a chart that's pretty self-explanatory, and I think is the simpler the better, so we don't bog ourselves down with too much detail regarding the holiday season. So, we have safe activities, less safe, and unsafe activities. I think trick-or-treating is, the concept of social distancing, mask wearing, hand sanitizer, limiting groups to go out. If you can go out in a limited area, if you went out for a half mile before, if you can limit it to quarter mile or your neighborhood, that'd be ideal. Staying in family groups, that's also ideal as well. Things of that nature would be prudent in this phase that we're in. So that's what I have to say on the Halloween. We'll answer questions. If anyone has questions, just call the Board of Health office. But I think these are universal recommendations.
Great, thank you. And we'll be sure to have this posted on the website as well as the Board of Health site.
Jim, it already is on the homepage of the website, actually.
Okay, good. Chief Safire, are you on? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, sir. Thank you. In regards to Halloween this year, we understand that it's going to be a go, albeit with enhanced safety precautions. That being said, we will still increase our patrols as we have in years past from the hours of 5 to 9. That seems to be the peak of our trick-or-treaters being out there to ensure pedestrian safety while they're out and about. In addition, with the new information and safety precautions that Mr. McVeigh just rolled out, we're going to start a social media campaign related to Halloween, which will be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our police website as we get closer to Halloween.
Great, thank you. I guess the message we'd like to send is that we don't have any local restrictions here other than good sense, and to try and follow the guidelines that has been shared with us by the Department of Public Health. With that said, hopefully we will be able to proceed with a good holiday here in town, that the weather would cooperate, etc. But I did want to give also Chris Fogarty an opportunity to share with us a couple of the things that are also going on that are special to Millis. So we have two things here on the that we wanted to share with folks. And Chris, if you're on, maybe you could just lead us through them.
Hi, I'm here. So typically we always do the Halloween party and touch a truck, but that's not happening this year. So we're going to follow up with, we did this last year. It was it's on your screen right now. It's the Halloween house decorating contest. And folks can email us a picture and of their house. It doesn't have to be one picture. They can send multiple pictures to K Fogarty, and that's KFOGARTY at millisma.gov. If they want to send pictures of their house or maybe their neighbor's house, to nominate them by October 28th, and we will announce and deliver their awards on the 30th. And social distancing, we're trying to celebrate the holiday, but in a safe way. The other contest we have going on right now, which we were very grateful and thankful for Tractor Supply for being our sponsor, is the Spooktacular Pet Contest, the Halloween costume contest for your pet. And I'm not quite sure, but if you can hear my dog in the background right now, she's like howling. Sorry, I'll be right with you, Gemma. And again, they can send pictures to the recreation department. So we're gonna have those dates from October 12th through the 27th, and we will announce the winners on Saturday, October 31st. So dress your pets up and take some pictures and send us your awesome pet in their Halloween costumes. Just something fun. And people love their pets, so thought it'd be a good idea.
Great, yes. That's good. Two good ideas. And great to have some pluses here. And we wanted to end this little segment of the agenda with a little bit of merriment rather than just rules to follow. So thanks very much. I would say, folks who have been driving around town, there are certainly houses around town that have gotten a real head start, but there's plenty of time to catch up. You'll see some spectacular things as you drive around town, but I'm sure there's other opportunities to be in the competitive hunt, so to speak. So thanks very much. We appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. Okay. Next item on our agenda is one that's pretty exciting for the town of Millis in general and for the fire department in particular. I have the opportunity to introduce Mr. Kaczynski and Chief Barrett to talk to us about some new full-time fire personnel that we are going to be approving this evening. So, Mr. Kaczynski, why don't you take it off and have the chief speak to us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is an exciting evening insofar that we do have, we are making a big move in the fire department. We have, through the grant that Chief Barrett procured through the federal government, we are able to bring on 4 full-time firefighters at no cost to the town, starting as soon as we can get them on board. And we have 3 of those individuals here this evening. And I will let the chief talk in specifics about them, but I will be requesting that this evening that the board ratify my appointment of Cameron Wenzel, William Santa Fe, and Alan Wallace as the newest full-time members of the Millis Fire Department. And very excited about it. And I'm sure the chief can go into detail about their background and the great things they bring to us in their future of serving with the community.
Excellent. Chief Barrett, yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It is an exciting night. We are able to appoint 3 out of the 4 firefighters that we received from the federal government. We're very lucky that 3 of the 4 we can hire from our call department. This means that 2 of these gentlemen are candidates that the town sponsored to become paramedics that we funded, and we're able to keep them in town working for us. Granted, both have ventured outside the department. We had Cam Wenzel, who joined us about 5 years ago as a call firefighter. Went through our paramedic program, got his paramedic, started with the town in Norfolk as a full-time firefighter paramedic, and when the opportunity to come back to Millis came up, he quickly resigned and came and joined our force, as well as William Santa Fe. Will took a job with the town of Wayland. Same thing, the minute a job turned up here, Will came right back to us. We're very lucky to have those 2 hometown kids. We're excited to have them. Their families are here to support them tonight. And Alan is a newcomer to Millis. I believe it's been about 3 years, maybe a little bit longer. He comes to us from Pennsylvania. And on a whim, he stopped in the station. He was able to speak with us, quickly joined our call department, and has moved his way up He's an asset to the department. He's currently in paramedic school. We hope to have him finished in about 18 months. And all three are ready to go. The start date for their employment would be October 11th.
Great. So, Chief, if you could point them out to us. I know we're not going to be getting up to hug each other, but...
So, starting to my left, I guess, would be Cam Wenzel. In the back is Will Santa Fe. And to the right is Alan Wallace. They're all here. Their families are currently watching this in our apparatus bay, where we will proceed once the appointment is done and have a nice pinning ceremony for all three.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you about that, because hopefully we can have that happen too tonight. So
We can.
that's assuming these three gentlemen pass the final test, which is the select board. I want to just start by congratulating each one of them. I really appreciate your willingness to step forward, and I know that we have the great advantage of having folks who are really already working here. I know it's an on-call status, but it's the same work, the same hard commitment, et cetera, and so it's great to have a group of gentlemen who can join the force, coming from having been developed by the stern watch and gentle hand of Chief Barrett and his officers. So I don't have any particular questions for any of the gentlemen, other than to indicate to Alan, right, who stopped by on a whim.
Yep.
Good whim there, as it turned out. So I'd ask if Mr. Germain or Ms. Underwood, if you have any questions you'd like to pose or make before we take our vote.
I'd like to make a quick comment, if Ms. Underhill doesn't mind.
I don't mind.
And that is, I'm very pleased not only to see them, but to see that these are individuals who are willing to transfer from other departments, in some cases, to join our department. And I think it's a reflection on the chief and our department and the way the town has been administered, that it's great to see people like this who have made such a commitment. So great, congratulations, and welcome aboard.
Ms. Underhill?
I was thinking exactly what Pete said. It's great that there's that you guys have, some of you decided to come back as soon as you knew there was an opportunity. That speaks volumes for the department, and we're really glad to have you. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Just want to clarify, the material we received indicates that Corey physical and drug screening has already happened. Is that correct?
So we have 2 out of the 3 have had physical and drug screens. All
Okay.
Corey's are complete. We have 1 final physical that I believe is Thursday.
And which one is that going to be?
I believe it's Will Santa Fe.
Okay. So that being said, I would ask one of my colleagues if they'd like to make the motion to approve the town administrator's appointment.
Go ahead, Erin.
Okay. I move that we approve the town administrator's appointment of 3 new fire rescue department members, Cameron Wenzel, William Santa Fe, and Alan Wallace.
Subject to physical.
Subject to physical drugs and drug screen.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that the board approve the town administrator's appointment of Cameron Wenzel, William Santa Fe, and Alan Wallace, subject, in the case of Mr. Santa Fe, subject to his physical exam and drug screen, as new full-time firefighter paramedics in the town of Millis. So I will poll the board for a vote. Start with the chair, Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And the motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations, gentlemen. We appreciate your willingness to serve. I personally would like to see you in parades, but no other time, at least in my house, if you don't mind. But thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And Chief Barrett, thank you for your leadership, and I'm we'll eagerly await the filling of the 4th position as well.
Great. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next item on our agenda is the appointment of a temporary contact tracing employee. This is a conversation led by Mr. McVeigh.
Yes, currently we are looking to have a temporary employee in McManus who is a nurse practitioner be on board for contact tracing, which is expected to increase fortunately in the next few months. She's been working with the Board of Health and the senior workout program since early last year. She's been doing a great job. Like I said, she's retired and a nurse practitioner. She was trained in the Maven system, software system, state system for contact tracing and disease investigation. So she's on board, and she'll make a great asset to the department in supplementing the already burdened, or I should say overburdened nursing staff we have now. We're lucky at this present time that we're able to handle cases we do, being a smaller town, but as the fall and winter season goes on, we're expecting quite a few more cases, and there's a lot of work to contact tracing. So we're glad to have her, and apparently this money's going to come out of the CARES fund, so FEMA money, and we anticipate being with this until at least the spring of next year, I would imagine.
Very good.
And Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you. With the comments from our health director, I am requesting that the board ratify my appointment of Ann McManus as a temporary contact tracing employee of the town to be paid from the CARES Act funds. And we will revisit this later in December as far as funding into next year. Next calendar year, that is.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, because the CARES Act funding runs out at the end of the year, is that correct? Or
correct. It can be used at this time, unless Congress changes its scope in terms. It can be utilized for any COVID-related purposes up until December 30th of this year.
Okay. So we're secured from the funding point of view until the end of the year, and then hopefully something will break and we'll be able to continue this important, very important service to the town.
Yes.
Okay. So you are then asking us to approve the appointment of Ann McManus, your appointment of Ann McManus, as a temporary employee of the Board of Health to serve as a contact, what's the right term? Tracer.
Contact tracer for COVID-19.
Okay. Do I have any questions from the board?
No questions.
None.
I'm certainly glad that Ms. McManus is willing to step forward, and apparently she's already doing a lot of this, so I'm glad that we're able to formalize it at least for the next couple of months, and then hopefully beyond that. So with that in mind, I make a motion that the board approve the town administrator's appointment of Ann McManus as a temporary employee of the Board of Health to perform contact tracing and other services.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McVeigh, for sticking with us till then. You're more than welcome to continue down this journey with us for the rest of the night, but you don't have to, because I think we don't have any other items with the Board of Health.
We appreciate your acceptance on that. On Ann's behalf.
Good. All right, the next item on our agenda is no less important than the ones we've just completed, because due to the willingness of some of our fellow citizens to serve, we are going to be able to tonight, assuming the board is approving the members that have been nominated, to fully appoint the full committee for the Enterprise Advisory Committee. At this point, the board has already designated Mr. Germain as the board's liaison, and the Finance Committee has recommended appointment of Kathy McGinnis as the FinCom representative. We have 3 other individuals who have expressed their willingness to serve, and in this case, they've either served on one or both of the water and sewer committees in the past. So fortunately, we have some good experience here. That would be Mr. Ed Chisholm, Mr. Robert Cantareggi, and Craig Schultz. So at this point, I'd like to ask the board if they have any questions, comments, thoughts they'd like to share before we decide that we move forward to make the committee appointment.
I don't have any. I think we have some good people who are interested, and that's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank people for stepping up and continuing to, in most cases here, continuing to serve on these committees because it's important work, and it's nice to have skilled people involved that can participate.
I'd like to make one quick comment.
Yes.
And that is, even if you're not a member of the committee, I would invite you to attend some of these committee meetings, particularly remotely, to become familiar with what's going on, because it gives you an idea of what's happening in town, and in most cases, probably all, the committee will allow you to offer your own thoughts, even when you're just attending as an outsider. So please don't think if you're not a member that you can't attend.
Yes, I would agree with that in particular. We do have the opportunity here for some folks with some real expertise to participate. But hold on just a minute. The issues that we're going to be dealing with are pretty broad-based, and I think it's important for folks to engage to the extent that they are interested to continue this work, which is going to be hard work, good work, and it's work that relates to not only in what's important to the town, but a critical goal of the select board for this current fiscal year. So, Ms. McGinnis.
Yes, I would just like to ask before you vote, what members or liaisons constitute of actual vote of this committee?
The 5 individuals that we talked about are all voting members. The liaisons who will be participants but non-voting members would be the town administrator, the director of public health, and also the superintendent of the Department of Public Works.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one more question, please?
Sure, certainly.
Could you explain why a member of the select board is a voting member when, let me just tell you why I wonder, because it's an advisory committee that will advise to the select board, and then the select board would either act or not act on the recommendations of this new committee. And if that's the case, then a member of the select board would have an actual vote at a committee meeting and also have a full vote at the select board meeting. That's, I'm calling that to your attention because I don't know if another committee has a vote, one of the liaisons that are the selectmen or women have an actual vote of that committee. But I just thank you very much.
Oh, that's fine. There are several committees, including capital planning, where there's a member of the board who also has a vote on the committee. We do have a couple of committees where we have decided not to include the liaison as a voting member. In this case, at least my rationale was some, I don't want to use the right term because it wasn't necessarily some advice from town council, not an opinion, that we needed to be careful that in all instances the board is retaining its responsibility as water and sewer commissioner. So I think it was a reasonable call in this case. We'll certainly run the committee for a while, see how that works out. And if we have to make adjustments going forward, then we can do that as well. But this will not be...
My last question, if I might, other than this newly formed committee and the capital planning committee, is there another member of a select, any of these other committees in town? Because I did some research and I can't find it. I'm just calling that again to the board's and yours attention and everything. Thank you very much. I got to go back to the Patriots for a little while.
Okay. I believe that certainly in the Cable Advisory Committee, the member was a voting member. I can't remember whether it's the CPC as well,
Yes.
but certainly, yeah, they're a voting member. Some of it is statutory, that the member of the board is required. This was just I think it's the right decision. I understand that there is some issue perhaps, but I do think this was the right decision, and we're going to continue to move forward on that basis. So, at this point, if there's no further comment, either from the public or from the board members, I would take a motion, just pointing out that the select board member has already been nominated, so we're looking to nominate the other four members of the committee.
I'd like to move to nominate Kathy McGinnis as a liaison with the FinCom to the new Enterprise Funds Committee, as well as Craig Schultz, Ed Chisholm, and Robert Cantareggi.
That's the one.
Okay.
Is there? I'll second the motion. Oh, right.
As planning board liaison, correct?
Okay. As amended.
So there we go. So those are the 5 members, voting members of the committee. So I will poll the board for that appointment. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain,
Yes.
Ms. Underhill.
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously. And I would expect that, Mr. Germain, you will work to coordinate and establish the meetings and meeting schedules and whatnot, so that the committee can begin its important work. And whatever other members of the board can do to be supportive, let us know, because this is going to be an important undertaking for the next several months or more beyond.
Yes, if you don't mind, there's a lot to be done. We have a lot of issues with sewer and water connections, some new rulings from the Department of Environmental Protection and other locations. So we have a number of things that are going to have to be dealt with. I hope to convene the advisory committee very shortly, and I'll look for input from not just the board of selectmen, but from the community at large. This affects everyone in the community, so I hope that we will get large participation from within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the next item we have on our agenda is a report on the 2021 and 2022 tax work-off program as it relates to some restrictions that are really spring from the COVID situation, the COVID emergency situation. So, Mr. Moore and Ms. Kao, I hope you're on board here, and if you'd like to, if you could sort of start off and let us know what it is you would like us to consider.
Hi, Patty Kao. What I'm asking the select board is to take a look at the 2021 tax work-off program. Our program runs from December 1st to October 1st. So we just finished our 2021 program. Most of our participants weren't able to complete their hours. So this has been a real tough thing with different towns. Some towns are gifting the $1,500 to their participants because they weren't able to do the program. Some towns are not. I believe full towns, Canton, Sharon, and Westwood, are given full reimbursement for those that were unable to work their hours because town hall was closed. Some towns are doing partial payment, Foxborough and Dedham. I had the opportunity to sit with MCOA and do a community discussions. They had a series of 4 discussions talking about the program and what different towns are doing about it. Out of 53 responses, 19 communities suspended the program. Other communities are looking for different ways to modify their positions so seniors are able to take advantage of the tax abatement. So I think what we have to do is take a look at the 2021 program and see what we're going to do about the seniors that haven't been able to provide their hours. The COA has 21 slots. Out of those 21 slots, only 3 have completed their 100 hours. The others vary from 0 to 70 hours. So we have to take a look and see what we're going to do with that program as it just ended October 1st. We have to decide what we're going to do.
Okay, so what we've got is that the work through period is completed. We do have the option of extending it.
No, we don't.
We don't.
Ends October 1st, 2020.
So
and that would be the 2021 program. That abatement comes off in the 3rd and 4th quarters of 2021.
Okay,
so we have to decide.
Yeah. We get to decide what credit to grant as opposed to whether to extend the time frame. Right. Not that this next few months is going to make a lot of difference anyway, because we still have the same problem.
Well, the program's ended. The 2021 program is done. October 1st is the end date. So we have to decide what we're going to do. Like I said, only 3 completed their 100 hours, and the rest vary from 0 to 70 hours.
Okay.
And like I said, some towns, Canton, Sharon, and Westwood, have gifted the hours to their participants. Foxborough and Dedham paid partial. And I did submit what other towns are doing, local towns, and a lot of them just aren't decided what they're going to do.
Well, we haven't decided yet either, so now it's up to...
We have to do it quick because I have to get the paperwork into finance and also to the assessors to give them, to ensure that they have enough time to take the abatement off the 3rd and 4th quarters.
Let me just ask the question because I want everybody to understand. You said there's 21 participants in the program.
Only in the senior tax workup.
I'm sorry, yeah.
The Friends program has 5 participants.
Okay, but on the senior side, there's 21. In prior years of the 21, how many complete their 100 hours?
Every single one of them.
Every one of them. So probably many of these people have been participants in the program before. Is that correct?
Yes,
prior
sir.
year. And they've consistently performed and done the work we've asked them to do. Okay. On the veteran side, Mr. Moore, you have some thoughts there?
Well, there was one who fell directly under me, and he did do, I did his timesheets. A lot of it was before I came on board.
Okay.
However, I was able to monitor a lot of that he did outside. We worked a lot outside, especially with, some of the Memorial Day ceremonies and a whole bunch of veterans things that we were working. That's Mr. Yeager that everyone knows. Now the other one, the other veterans, there's 4 others, and I have to talk to the department heads to see how far they've gotten, because that's information I don't have right now. Is how far the other 4, what exactly they did. The one under my purview, I made the call on that one. The ones that aren't under my purview, I don't know how much, and I'll have to talk to each department head to see how many hours they did.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Germain.
May I ask a question of Ms. Kao, excuse me? If we decided to fund all 21, what type of money are we talking about, or abatement are we talking in total?
My understanding, the 2021 program would have gone by minimum wage, so 100 hours. I do believe it would be $1,275
Per person.
per person.
And that's correct, Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes, that's correct.
And the other 5 that you had mentioned?
That would be the veterans program, the same thing.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Moore? I understand on the veterans that is it 1,000 or 1,500? How does that work?
We fell into exactly what the senior work-off was. For 2021, it's going to go up to 1,500, but we just voted on that.
Okay. So if I'm adding it up correctly, we're going to do 21. If we were to go forward with this, it would be 21 times 1275. Is that correct?
That would be
And
the senior.
for the seniors. And then it could be 5 times 1,500. And these are
For 1,250.
I'm sorry.
We fell into the same amounts as the senior.
Oh,
Correct me
okay.
if I'm wrong, Patty, correct? We fell right into the same amount.
I do believe the select board voted to raise it to 1,500. That would probably go under the 2022 program,
Right.
which starts December 1st.
That's what I meant, 2022.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to get something so we understand what the actual numbers are that we're talking about. So, and of the total, Patty, that you had in the past, have all of them completed the 100 hours?
They have.
And are any of them new to the program, or are these all repeats of people who have done it in the past?
I do believe I have one new person.
But otherwise, all of them have continued to put in their 100 hours for multiple years. Okay. The reason I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, is at least gives us an idea of what's been done in the past, what kinds of monies are involved, and whether it makes sense to look at some forgiveness for this year because of unavoidable circumstances. So that's why my question.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
I just wanted to comment that the Senior Work-Off program is, my 2 cents here, is it's a great program. Like Patty said, many of the seniors come, they work every year. A lot of them are in need of this money. And my other 2 cents is that we had already committed that money this year. It's not like we're suddenly giving out more money than we would have been. We were expecting to give this money out anyway. Not give the money out, but
Abate the tax.
abate the taxes, thank you. And I just wanted to speak on their behalf. I think this was unfortunate circumstances, and it's been unfortunate for everybody, and a lot of people were hit, with a lot of financial hardships this year, so I just felt I needed to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I also, as Karen stated, the DPW, as the DPW director, we use these people many, many times at the transfer station. We use them at the DPW building, cleaning up, and we've used them in the office. We need them, probably they may need it, but we need them to fill in gaps that we just don't have. So I would agree that whatever the board votes, but just to say that these people come and their expertise is more than I think we all know. Thank you.
Well, I would just like to add that, what we've done over the years is we've made the program, we've expanded the program a little bit within parameters. We've tried to take advantage of the opportunity that the state law allows us, such as raising the amount for next year.
Mr. Chair, if I might?
Yeah.
Kathy
Let me
McInnes?
finish. Let me finish, please.
Okay.
And then, I think, there's some, this is a program that, from the board's point of view, and from the Council on Aging's point of view, and the Veterans Veterans Officer's point of view, it's a program that we have supported because it, as was said earlier, it adds value to us, and it sends an important message to seniors that we value them and continue to value their services. So I think it's important for us to think about it on that point of view. And I do agree with Ms. Beret. The amount involved here was already committed in a sense. We've already anticipated that we were going to forego this tax amount based upon the assumption that most of the folks finish their hours, so most of them get the maximum benefit. So, Ms. McGinnis, you had something you wanted to add?
Let me see if I can remember. No, I'll pass. Well said.
Ms. Underhill, do you have anything you'd like to weigh in on here?
I just have been listening, and I do agree with a lot of the points that were made, specifically a lot of the points that Karen had made. It has, knowing that most of these individuals, knowing that there's only one new person and most of them have always completed the time every year, and knowing what a crazy year this has been and continues to be, I would favor some grace in this circumstance.
Oh, I remembered, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think this is a no-brainer, and I'm just wondering why it's coming to the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board also. The whole town got paid, is my understanding, and it seems like Jim McKay needs these people more than, it's almost like having a couple of half-time employees or something. So if you're voting now, may I make a suggestion that somewhere it happens that this doesn't have to be brought up again? Thanks.
Thank you. It is the board's responsibility because we authorized the program, and so I think it's important for us to continue to not only advocate for the program as appropriate, but to oversee its operation. So I don't know. From my point of view, I guess what I would like to suggest is that we go ahead and adopt a vote that would forgive the additional hours or additional work, so that the individuals involved would be able to get the full amount of the benefit. And I think that that's a good gesture for us. The cost of the town, which was calculated in roughly $30,000, that was assuming that no one did anything, which is not the case. Quite a few have done as a number of them have completed their hours. Others have completed quite a few. So I think it's a good message to send, and continues to show our commitment to the program for us to waive the additional hours and to grant the full tax abatement to those enrolled in the program.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think I have to recuse myself from any vote that may take place.
Yes, you do.
Because I am a participant in the veterans side. I think I am, at any rate. I can't remember if I put in paperwork or not, so.
Okay, so I move then that we award or approve the full amount for all the participants in the program for the 2021 year for the Senior and Veteran Work-Off program, and forgive any missed hours.
I'll second that motion. So it's been moved and seconded. I will poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Jermaine abstains. Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
The motion is carried unanimously. So, Ms. Cahill, you can tell those other towns around where we stand, okay? Now,
A second part.
yeah.
The new program starts December 1st, 2020. I did reach out we have 11 departments participating in that, and I did reach out to the department heads and ask them, if we do open on January 1st, fingers crossed, would they be able to modify their position so the senior would be safe and also people in their department? only one department said they could not. The rest said they could. So going forward, I would like to start the 2022 program with modifications in place. I spoke to Karen. Karen had a great idea for her worker. Jim has a great idea for his workers. Every worker can be safe, and the department can be safe if town hall opens.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, I guess my question to department heads is don't have to address it tonight. You know, if there are tasks that can be completed remotely, you know, I think we should also take that into consideration. I mean, if there's, you know, data work or whatever it is that somebody could do from home, assuming it's appropriately, you know, managed, that we ought to be able to find ways to help folks, even if we're. See, what I'm trying to get at is we don't know when they're going to open in January. I think we need to be a little ahead of ourselves if possible, but I certainly favored moving the program forward for the, you know, the full amount, and then you know go from there. Now, I suppose another way to get at this, and I don't know whether we want to do this tonight, is to reduce the number of hours required. I mean, if we can't get folks in until January, that means 3 months are already gone, right? October, November, December. No?
It would only be one, Jim, because the program starts December 1st, 2020.
Okay. All right.
If we were to open it, it would only be 1 month miss. And believe me, those people will go above and beyond their own.
Yeah, okay. Well, is there any action that we need to take? I mean, I do agree with the prior comment that, the program is up and running. If the program is up and running and it runs according to the, the rules that have already been established and the amounts, et cetera, that have been approved by town meeting, there's really no reason for the Board of Selectmen Select Board to get involved in that. It's only if we modify the program. So I don't know whether if we want to do anything other than give you the encouragement and the veterans program as well to go forward full speed ahead to get folks lined up to see if we can get them back in action, so to speak.
Yeah. The problem is there is a lot of documentation involved, so that's why I start the program. I have to advertise it in our newsletter. Usually it's in the October one. But I wasn't sure about where the program was going. But I have to advertise it in the November newsletter. And, we have to interview people, try to fit them with departments. Yep. So it is quite a long process, and it does take a month to do that.
Well, I mean, I guess from my point of view, we ought to go ahead and do it. Mr. Kaczynski?
Thank you. I was just going to say that, I agree with your statement earlier. I believe unless the board would like to take or go in a different direction with these programs, I think simply expressing your support for the program to continue would be sufficient. Would be sufficient direction for the staff to move forward with the program. I don't think a formal vote is needed. I don't believe we've done that before. But I think as long as we know that the select board is committed to moving forward with these programs, that's sufficient.
Well, I certainly think that's the case. If any of my colleagues disagree, we got to speak up at this point. Otherwise, full speed ahead.
Agreed.
One last thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And again, I will say I'm thrilled. I, again, think this is a really symbiotic relationship that we have between the town, the seniors and the veterans, and it's always been great, and we've enjoyed having it. I just wanted to note on another note that John Moore, our Veteran Services Officer, just completed his training, and he is an official VSO. He took a 4-hour exam, John? Is that right?
It took me 4 hours, probably like a 3-hour exam. But it took me 4.
So I just wanted to say a quick congratulations that people know that he is official now at this point.
Great. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now get to work.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to the next item. Next item we have is an appointment here for a hearing. We're running a few minutes late. We'll try to catch up a little bit. This is, let me just scroll forward. My notes here. Okay, we we have a request for an abatement for a water bill charged to the property owners at 368 Village Street. I guess to begin this process, I'd like to ask the DPW director to just a quick overview, because I would like to give the applicant the opportunity to state the case before we ask for you to give us a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn it over to Jen quickly. There was a brief synopsis. There was a leak in the meter pit at 368 Village Street, and that leak went on for several months. And we did send you out late today. Jen wrote a memo and attached a letter that we tried to get in touch with the residents or the business office. And it's a quite substantial bill. And, there was a leak. It was repaired by by 368. And as we all know, I just want to give you the curb stop is where the town relinquishes the responsibility. So the curb stop into the property, through the meter, into the faucets or whatever in the property are up to the owner. So what we call it is it's a leak up to the owner, and it was shown that there was a leak in the meter pit. So Jen, I know she has something prepared that she'd like to give to the board before we turn it over. Thank you.
Good evening, Jennifer Scannell, Treasurer Collector. So I did send you guys a memo, the board a memo late this afternoon, but I just wanted to go over the timeline of events. In February of 2020, that's when we went out and did reads for the third quarter bill in FY20. As Jim described, this meter is in what's called a meter pit. So it's kind of an unusual situation where the meter is located in a pit outside the property. But it's the type of meter that the DPW employee has to manually read the meter every quarter and give that information to my office so that we can process the bill. There's no remote reader installed on this. So they went out back in February, noticed that the cover to the pit was broken, and as a result, there was a ton of debris, water, condensation, which prevented them from getting a read at that time. So at that time, a letter was sent to the DPW. A letter was sent by the DPW office indicating that there was an issue with their meter. So the bill was estimated at that time because we could not get a read. In April, which would have been the next quarterly bill run, which was the fourth quarter of FY20, there was a policy decision made not to do any manual reads due to the COVID situation. So we did not go out and get a read. The bill was estimated at that point. And that was for every manual read that we had having in the town for that quarter. So fast forward to the last bill, which is July of 2020, and the DPW employee went out to obtain the read and noticed that the pit was just overflowing with water. So the DPW immediately called my office to get a phone number to the main office at 368 Village Street, and immediately communicated with somebody at their office and told them that there was a leak on their side of the meter that needed to be addressed as soon as possible. So we did send them a letter, like I said, back in February. We didn't go out in April. It's hard to say how long the leak was going on. Probably, most likely, since February when we communicated at that point that there was an issue. And then again, we, caught it again in July when we went out again. So we did do our due diligence, I think, in notifying the property owner.
Okay, thank you. So we do have this abatement request from Dr. Khalsa. Are you on the call, sir?
Yes, I am.
Very good.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi.
So could you just, we have in writing your request for an abatement, if you could sort of review it with us, and so we move on to the, the consideration of the issue.
So that letter is new information to me. I don't know exactly what the letter said, but if the letter had suggested that we were supposed to take an action, I'm sure we would have. The property manager person tells me that the first she knew about this was when I think Mr. McKay may have been the one to talk with Dharma Khalsa and say that there was a problem. And as soon as she knew that, I guess in the initial communication, what I was told was when there was that communication between Mr. McKay and the administrator of our little community, that there didn't seem to be a problem ongoing. So the first we really knew that there was a problem, and I haven't seen the letter, so I don't know what it says, and that may be a really important piece here, but the first we knew about it was when we were told that, oh my gosh, there's a big leak here, you guys got to fix it. So within 24 hours, I believe, the leak calls in, had dug it out, and a plumber had come in, and by the following day, the leak was fixed. So as soon as we knew anything, there was anything actionable to do, we took care of it immediately. And I understand that the leak was on our side, but there was no way we would have known from the story I had that there was a problem. So our usual water bill for a quarter is less than, or around $2,000. I think 1 year prior, I looked it up, it was less than $2,000. So all of a sudden we had a water bill for over $22,000. And, this is the time for a lot of people to be out of work, and we have a lot of people that are over the age of 65, and it's just really tough to come up with that kind of money at this point with these residents. So we're hoping we can get some help. So here's my thought, and you guys will do what you see is appropriate. But if there was no way that we could have known, as far as I see it, that there was a leak going on that we needed to take action on, then whatever expenses the town incurred by us having a leak on our side of the on our property, basically, we should reimburse the town for that. The town shouldn't lose money on this, but I don't think, in my opinion, that the town should be charging us those higher usage rates that kick in when people are overusing water, and the rate changes after you get to certain amounts of usage. So our previous bills had been around $2,000, so we paid $4,000 just out of good faith for this meeting to take place. But boy, to do $22,000 would be so much of a hardship for us, and it doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think the town should incur the cost of it because it was our leak. I get that, but I really don't think this is an appropriate size bill for the circumstances of what happened.
So let me just ask, in terms of the notification that the department indicates was forwarded to you folks in February, you don't have any knowledge of receiving it, or?
No, I asked our bookkeeper and our property manager about all the communications, and they looked up the bills, and there was nothing on any of the bills that said anything. And I had no idea that there had been a letter, so I don't know what happened to that, but I also don't know exactly what it said. And maybe you can tell us, did that letter say you need to take action on something?
If I could ask you, Mr. McKay, or Mrs. Scannell, could you just tell us what the letter said?
Yeah, so the letter was mailed out on February 11th, 2020. And when I did speak to the property manager, she knew that the letter came out. We've had conversations from February 11th. The secretary that handled these letters had conversations with the property manager from February through July. I don't know the exact date. I don't have that with me right here. She's not in this week, so we can get that information. The letter just basically says it's according to our water billing records, there has been an issue with your water meter. The town is not receiving a radio signal from the meter and cannot ascertain the actual reading. The water department has determined that the meter is in a meter pit that must be cleaned in order to read it. Please call the DPW office within 7 days from the date of this letter to arrange for an appointment so the DPW staff member can rectify the problem. Please call Marie during the times. It gives the times 508-376, extension 138 to arrange for the appointment. And then the conversation when we went out and we got the actual read, I did call the property right away. To notify them of the bill of being the $22,000 because it was brought to my attention by by Jen.
Yeah, and that's what we jumped on, and we all got together and fixed it. So back in February, you're saying that you told.
Can I just finish?
I'm sorry.
Hold on, please. Hold on. We're just trying to get through the chair. Okay, go ahead, Mr. McKay.
When I called about the bill, they already knew about the leak and it was already taken care of and it was already fixed. When I talked to her, and yes, sir, I did send the letter. The letter came out on February 11th, 2020. We don't certify mail; we send them direct mail, and we keep copies in the office.
Okay, so we have evidence that a letter was sent. According to the applicant, they don't have a record of receiving it, but there certainly was dialogue among the parties here throughout this period. Now, I just want to ask one question, though, and really it's about the April timeframe. Fact of the matter is, if this had been any other time, other than the COVID emergency, due to the nature of this particular property and the fact that we can't get a reading by radio or something, our typical process would have been to go out in April and try to do a reading. Is that correct?
That is correct. We'd go out for an actual read. It says no radio read, but it was meant that there was no actual read. They have to go out and.
There's no reading, yeah. Okay, so we would have gone out there in April had it not been for COVID, which would have certainly made the problem a lot smaller. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. So we have received from our staff. We talked a little bit about what we found, and now you've made a recommendation to us that we do what?
So I'll speak first, then Jen can speak. When I did speak to the property manager, she brought up the fact that, just as Dr. Carlson just stated, that they would be willing to pay the $8,930.22. I said I did not have that power. I spoke to the town administrator about this, and we felt to abate that much money, it would have to go through this process, through the Board of Selectmen, to take that vote.
So that would be to charge the owner for the water, but charge the base rate rather than the accelerated rate. And the abatement then in that case would be $13,318 in an abatement. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Something that we had done before in terms of significant hardship, because the homeowner, or in this case the property owner, did in fact get the water. We delivered the water. The fact that so it went beyond the meter to the property. So the water was used, the water system did deliver the water. Okay, I'd like to at this point ask my colleagues if you have questions.
I do.
I'd like to address to either Mr. or Dr. Kalsa or to the DPW director or the treasurer.
I do, Mr. Chairman, if I may. If he had been paying on a normal basis, how much would the bill have been based on past charges? Can somebody give me that idea?
Yeah, roughly, I want to say 2,000.
About 2,000 a quarter, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it right around 2,000.
A quarter. And so how many quarters are we talking here?
Well, I mean, this was the last quarterly water bill. If you say it was leaking, like, we don't know for certain, but it's possible it was leaking since February, 3 quarters.
Okay, so he's been paying 2,000 a quarter, pretty much. And so that adds up to what, 2 quarters or 3 quarters? So that's either 4,000 or 6,000 that he would have paid. And granted, but I'm reading carefully what was transmitted in February, and what's been done, and the fact that there was a leak, and taking into account COVID, I think that I not only agree that we should forgive some of it, but I'm inclined to say there's culpability on three sides, our side, his side, and the COVID side. And to that end, I think this is a very unique situation. Things might have been found much sooner had somebody gone out and manually looked at the pit or whatever, which couldn't happen and didn't happen in the April timeframe. So, in all honesty...
Hold on. Let's go ahead, Pete.
In all honesty, as I look at it, and this is my view, I personally think that we ought to be at the normal rate of $2,000 a quarter and a penalty because, yes, he had water delivered. No, he didn't even know he was having it delivered. These are my views. And so perhaps we charge an extra quarter's worth of payments and call it good. This is a unique circumstance, and that's the way I view it.
Ms. Underhill?
Okay, so just a few questions. So the bill had been paid current until the July bill because April was estimated. So it was estimated at what amount they were used to paying. So it's not like any quarter was not paid until the large bill in July. Right. And from what I'm seeing, they did pay $4,000 so that, in good faith to be able to have this meeting. I latched on to a comment made, I don't know who it was now, but that there was, the amount discussed was the regular rate for the same amount of water, but it was more like $8,000 instead of $22,000. I agree that there's a lot going on here, and it's a strange circumstance, especially with COVID, in that there's, do we know how many people actually have manual read pits or meters in pits?
We do, Jen, about 100 and something manual reads?
Yeah, I would say close to about 100.
And this one's a little bit different because it's in a pit? Is that what I'm understanding?
It is about, I'd say about, in a meter pit like this for a community of that size, Glen Ellen was one before they changed it over to go individual. There's several condominium complexes. I'd say maybe 15, 25 to, it's kind of small.
Okay.
So the usage for this is, in that 8,000 usages, that's what it costs by the select board by the rates. That's what that $8,000 cost is. That's what it costs for the treatment of the water, to deliver it, and so on and so on. So that's how it came up to that $8,000 amount, that per gallon that they used.
Okay.
That's actual.
Okay. Well, I'm certainly, given the circumstances, I'm personally certainly in favor of an abatement of some sort. I'd be interested in hearing more thoughts as to exactly what others are thinking, but it sounds fair to me that especially from what Dr. Kelso was saying, that, not to have the town incur a cost, for what was delivered, but also not to charge at the higher rate. Definitely sounds like a fair compromise, in my opinion.
Well, I'd just like to respond to that a little bit. And this is, I agree with a couple of comments my colleagues have made. In the past, where we have found a hardship, we have found a willingness to reduce the bill, but charge for the water received, which in this case would have been at the lower rate, because the water was in fact delivered, and as was indicated, the water system delivered the water. The fact that it didn't make its way into into the building is it's not irrelevant, but it's sort of like we have a mutual accountability here. The customer needs to maintain the water on the other side, and we need to get it to that point in the property. So, and certainly the fact that we would have read this meter in April had it not been for COVID, to me is a very strong argument about the hardship and the inequity of trying to certainly to charge at the higher rate. So the flip side of it, of course, is that we have an obligation as the water commissioners to safeguard and maintain the financial integrity of the system. So we have a countervailing interest here to make sure that we are carefully, if we grant abatements, we're careful about it, and we're not setting up a precedent that somebody else might not like to take advantage of. So, my feeling is that I can support an abatement that would charge the property owner the amount of money based upon the water delivered, and we haven't disputed that. The water was delivered. Everybody seems to be in agreement that we delivered the water. But we would charge at the lower rate, the lowest base rate for the entire amount. So I can support that, and I'm willing to certainly hear from my colleagues as to whether or not there's some alternative that they would like to see. Because I do believe that the amount that would result from Mr. Germain's recommendation would be somewhat lower. The problem I have with that is it's based on an average of usage, and the usage wasn't at the average. It simply wasn't. The water was delivered. So I think we have some obligation to try and collect for the water delivered. That being said, yes.
My name is Dilip Khalsa, and I do a lot of the maintenance at the community. And I just, according to information, I think the day we learned about in the past, in April or in February, it was led to us believe that the leak wasn't on our side. The pit is 6 feet deep, and it was full of water at the time of inspection. So the DPW assumed it was a leak at the meter, but didn't indicate that it was on our side of the meter. Otherwise, they would have called me and I would have fixed it. It wasn't until July that we knew that the leak, they pumped out the pit, which is, like I said, 6 feet deep, saw that the meter was intact, that it was 2 feet on our side of the meter. At the water saying delivered is 200 yards from the building, and where it was delivered was to the swamp that is on the other side of our driveway. So just so this is not to dispute what you're saying, I'm just trying to clarify that we had no recognition that it was our problem until July, and we fixed the next day. So that's all I need to say.
Okay, thank you. But I do think that the perspective of the DPW is that in February there was notification. And whether or not it could have been clearer is a different issue. And there certainly was some confusion, I guess. But I don't think it's accurate to say that the DPW didn't make an effort to notify the owner that there's a problem with the meter. I mean, a problem with the hole.
Right.
So,
correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Germain?
No, sorry, Captain McInnes. Is my voice lowering as I get older?
No. Mr. Germain asked first, so I'm going to.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I guess thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I'm looking at is it is a very unusual situation. I also look at it from the perspective that as soon as they heard about it, they did take action. There's no dispute as to whether the water was delivered. We all understand that. I don't think anybody's even questioning that issue. And there is a cost to the town for the delivery of the water to be properly sanitized and everything else. So that's not the case. On the other hand, my feeling is as long as the town recovers the costs associated with the water, and one has to believe that at the standard rate, we are recovering that cost. And as long as that's the case, I have no problem with it. But I also do not feel that in this particular case, and I'm being very clear on that there ought to be any penalty applied to the individuals. They seem to have stepped up as soon as they really became aware that there was a serious problem and not just DPW can't read my meter. That's just the way I feel, and that's my personal view.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. McGinnis, you wanted to comment?
Yes, and finally, Mr. Chair, through you, could I ask either the DPW director or Ms. Jen, just confirm that you said that the applicant was notified earlier than what they're stating?
Yes, and he just said in February that, Dr. Culsa said he didn't know about the letter, but the last gentleman that spoke said that he knew about the letter and he knew about the conversations. I don't recall it ever stating that any DPW worker, every DPW worker that works in the water department knows that the curb stop is where the town ends. So if the meter pit is 15 feet in, 20 feet in, 30 feet in, wherever it's placed, on the private property, we don't own any meters in the town of Millis. The meter is purchased by the homeowner, community or whatever. So they did know about it. There was a conversation, and no DPW worker would have ever said, knowing that the leak was up that far into the property, 50 feet, that it would have been a leak up to us. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It was there in February.
No, you said enough, Jim. Thanks.
Hold on. Oh. We're not having dialogue here. If you'd like to say something, I mean, to be recognized.
Yep. No, I think that, in February, the letter went out and they were aware of it, and there was conversations going. And yes, when we went back in the summer to do a manual read in July, we actually found the meter pit, and I believe the worker walked up to the building, knocked on the door, and got the the property manager and walked out there. And the person that I spoke to with the property manager, she confirmed all of everything that I've stated.
I know you said that.
Hold on. Now, this is a discussion, and I'm willing to listen to people, but this is not a conversation. This is a directed hearing, so I expect comments to go through the chair.
I apologize.
All right, thank you.
And I'm all done. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so at this point in time, we've heard from the board members, we've heard several comments from the DPW, the treasurer's office. I'd like to ask the applicant, is there anything you'd like to say in addition?
Well, it is a surprise to me about that the letter exists, and I haven't seen it, but the way I heard it described of debris being on the meter, and I'm not sure how much water was described in the letter. It sounded like it wasn't readable. I don't think it sounds like there was a leak. The woman who would have received that, if we did get it, is such a nervous person that she would have had a total panic attack and acted on it really quickly if there was anything sounding like it was going to cost us money. So there was a miscommunication of some sort. Either the letter didn't make it to us or the wording, or I don't know what happened, but as soon as we knew there was a problem, we jumped on it. So I'd just like you to understand that there's no way we would have been just letting this leak go on. And I know ignorance doesn't get you out of a crime when you plead ignorance. I understand that there's costs to the town, but there is this hardship piece going on for us right now too. So I'm just asking for help, that's all.
Well, no one is saying there's a crime here.
I understand.
It's just us both trying to come up with something that's reasonable. Okay, so at this point what we have is an outstanding invoice was sent to the property owner for $22,248.37. At our last meeting, we made an agreement that we would allow the hearing to be held without requiring that the applicant pay the full amount. And in good faith, the applicant did send us a $4,000, which is the payment for prior quarters. So we granted the right to hear the hearing because of the good faith effort by the applicant. So the question is, what is the solution going to be from the select board's point of view? And we've talked about it in general. We have approached it from several angles. And now I think what we need to do is we need to come up with a motion for what we would like the resolution to be. If that carries, then we'll ask the property owner to work with us to come up with the funding that's appropriate. So that being said,
Mr. Chair, I apologize. Yes. Did you officially close the hearing? Did I miss it?
No, we didn't. We didn't even open it really, but.
Oh.
So,
I
think, yeah, at this point, you're right. We've completed the taking of testimony. Now we do have the opportunity for the board. Thank you for reminding me to debate the issue before we finalize the issue. So I would make a motion to close the hearing. Look for a second.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to close the hearing. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried. So now it's up to us. I'm not sure that we have much additional conversation, but I'd like to offer the motion that the board agree to charge the property owner for the water used at the lowest tier rate, which would result in a bill of $8,930.22. Stated differently, it would be an abatement of $13,318.15, and to waive any and all penalties for late payment, which technically this is, waive all interest and penalties.
Second.
May I make a
Sorry.
Well, it's been moved and seconded, so discussion.
Mr. Chair, the only concern I have is I don't know if they're able to pay that amount all at once, and if that's even possible for them. So I'd like to, if possible, understand, can we give them... At
this point, the hearing is completed. We can't take any new facts. Okay. If you would like to amend the motion for a delayed payment,
I would like
an installment payment of that or something of that, we certainly can take a motion to amend.
Yeah, I would like to amend it so that there are installment payments for anywhere from 1 to 3 months, and I don't know how best to deal with that, but I have to assume that this is a hardship no matter how you look at it.
Well, if you would like to make a motion, I would prefer it not to be a range.
Okay, then I will make the motion for allotments of up to for 3 months of installment payments, if that's adequate.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded to amend the motion to indicate that the motion would be to basically grant the abatement of $13,318.15 and to issue the final bill for $8,930.22 and allowing the applicant to pay the differential over a 3-month period with no interest or penalties charged. I would point out that $4,000 has already been paid, so the balance would be the rest of it over that period. So that's the motion as amended. So the first thing I will do is ask for us to whether or not we would accept the amendment to the main motion. This is two moderators talking to each other here, folks. So I'll poll the board for adopting that amendment. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
All right, the motion to amend is carried. So the full motion then is for the abatement of $13,318.15 the bill for the period in question would be $8,930.22, allowing the applicant a 3-month period to satisfy that bill with no interest or penalties being charged. So I will poll the board for that motion. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
That motion is carried unanimously. So we've granted the abatement and hopefully worked out a reasonable payment period. Thank you very much to the applicants for coming forward, and also our team for helping us with the research and whatnot. If the applicant has any further comments, issues regarding the abatement, you certainly have the right to come back to the board at another time and I suppose relitigate the new charge. I'm not trying to protract this, but I don't want to preclude any further discussion if you feel as though you would like to continue to request the abatement. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Germain.
May I ask or suggest one other thing? I noticed that part of this issue is due to the February 11th letter not having been responded to. Let me just put it that way. I'm assuming that Department of Public Works would have expected some kind of response within the 7 days that they state within their letter. It seems to me that we as a town should have some way of following up within a reasonable period of time to say, we haven't heard from you, we haven't been able to read your meter, we think there's a problem, would you please get in touch with us and do so with a certified letter or whatever, so that there's no question that the individual has been notified. And that's what I'd like to suggest.
All right, at this point, I guess what I would like to do is I'd like to ask the town administrator, the director of the DPW, and the treasurer to come up with a response to your thought here, to give us a recommendation as to what is feasible for the department to implement, and we'd be able to adopt that at a later meeting. Okay, the next item on our agenda, I'd like to move to a hearing for a liquor license transfer. We're a little behind. Hopefully the applicant is still here. Just a minute. So we have an application here for a transfer of a liquor license from, get the right name here.
Sorry.
From Morgantis doing business as Fifth Avenue Liquors to Swami Song Corporation doing business as Liquor World. I will read, since I have it in front of me, I will read the legal notice and then I will poll the board to open the hearing for the liquor license transfer. So in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, notice was given that an application is to be made to the Millis Select Board for a transfer of license to include a change of hours to 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 10 a.m. through 9 p.m. Sunday for an alcoholic beverages retail license from, as I said, Morgantis doing business as Fifth Avenue Liquors to Swami Song Corporation doing business as Liquor World, located at 6 Milliston Road, Millis, Mass. And the public hearing is being held tonight via Zoom. So I make a motion that we open the public hearing for the license transfer.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we open the hearing. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried. The hearing is now open. What I'd like to do is I'd like to ask the leader of the licensed world, Ms. Foray, to briefly...
That would be one of my hats, thank you.
The license, you're right.
And keeping the board in there. So the board, the select board, as you know, is the official local licensing authority. But we do all the work in the, well, ooh, that's awful. We do the work in the office just to prepare it for you. What we do is go through all the supporting documentation. We make sure all the boxes have been checked. We do a little background search on the company that's coming in to try to promote good business here in town. All the ducks were in a row, as far as I can tell for this. This is just a license transfer. This is one of our liquor stores. We have 3 liquor licenses in town currently. We are actually only supposed to have 2, but we were grandfathered into 3 at one point. So the only way to continue to have 3 is to transfer the license, so that's what's happening here. They are also, just as a note, that they are also changing hours. I know you noted that in the hearing. The current hours for Fifth Ave are 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. I believe they are looking to extend the hours by an hour on either end for Monday through Saturday, and to go from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Do we have someone from representing the applicant here?
Yeah. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm the attorney for the applicant.
Well, nice. Welcome.
Along with me this evening is Krishana Patel. Ms. Patel is the 100% shareholder of the corporation, president of the corporation. She would also be the license manager, meaning she'd be the on-site manager of the store itself.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So before the board, a fairly straightforward transfer. Fifth Avenue has done business for several years now. Swami Nasan Corporation is under agreement to purchase that liquor store. We don't anticipate any major changes to the structure or the business itself. The hope being to retain as many of the current employees as we possibly can. There's a change of the DBA to Liquor World, but the business otherwise will remain the same. Ms. Patel brings much experience in the liquor industry. She owns other locations. She's also been a assistant manager at Curtis Liquors down in Weymouth, which is a very high volume, successful store. She's certainly well equipped to manage this location here. No violations at any of our other locations. They run a very tight ship. She's alcohol tip certified. The requirement of their business is that all employees be tip certified as well. That has seemed to really work with, certainly the employees abiding by the liquor licensing rules, no underage sales, things of that nature. So certainly I can answer any questions that the board may have. Ms. Patel can as well.
Can you, thank you very much. Can you
Yeah,
tell
the
us
one thing I would add, sorry, Mr. Chair, there is a pledge of the license as well. The seller is financing the transaction, so they'll be taking back paper, acting as though as their bank essentially. So in doing so, that the town would also need to grant that pledge going back to the seller as well.
Okay, sorry. That's fine. Can you tell us a little bit about other locations that you currently own or operate? And is this acquisition include just this location, or is there another one?
I can answer the question regarding the Framingham location. There may be another Framingham location that's being sold by the same seller, but this ownership group is not purchasing that location. So this is a singular transaction, this one here today.
Okay. And what other operations do you have around the Commonwealth? Quickly.
Would you like me to answer that, or I can take?
You can answer it, or the Ms. Patel can answer it. I can't answer it. So.
Understood on that. So yeah, their most recent acquisition is Atlas Liquors, which is in Boston, another high volume store. They own locations in New Bedford, Malden, location out in the western part of the state, in Pittsfield area. But her day-to-day operations has been as assistant manager at Curtis Liquors, which is located down in Weymouth, which has been a very successful store for a long period of time. Their ownership group purchased that store, I want to say about 3 years ago. So that's really where her day-to-day operations have been. The other stores more so just an ownership interest in those.
Very good. All right, I'll ask any questions from my colleagues. Mr. Germain?
Yes, I have at least one. First, I'm surprised at opening at 8 a.m. I mean, to me, that's a little early, whether it's liquor or anything else. I'm just a little surprised at that. Beyond that, I feel strongly about encouraging business in town. I'm just surprised at the early hour of the opening in this town, so.
So my understanding, at least from the state's perspective, is that the state authorizes package stores to be open between those hours. So those are the permissible hours they're using. Whether there's high volume early in the morning, I highly doubt so. But those are more so just to be lined up with what the state does allow. Certainly reason being, if other stores in the town are permitted to be open those hours, and they need to be for, competitive purposes as well. So I don't think they anticipate a drove of business coming in at 8 a.m., but that's more so just to be in line with the state permissible hours.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Ms. Underhill?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the public about either the ownership or the hours or anything of that nature? All right. So we've heard the applicant, and we have no further comments from anyone. So I will make a motion that we close the hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the hearing on the transfer of the alcohol license from Morgantis to, I'll make it Fifth Avenue Liquors to Liquor World, located at Millicent Common. So I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously. So now we need a motion to, I want to clarify, there was a statement made by the attorney that they needed a motion not only to authorize transfer of the liquor license, but some other component of the transaction. I don't have any documentation on that, so if you could tell me what it is you're looking for.
Yeah, so it would just be a motion to approve the pledge of license and pledge of inventory to Morgantis Inc., which is the seller.
So you're looking for us to vote to transfer the license and to pledge?
Approve a pledge of license.
And approve the pledge of the license and inventory to Morgantis.
That's correct, yes. Thank you.
All right, so I will make the motion. I make a motion that the board approve the transfer of the liquor license from Morgantis, doing business as Fifth Avenue Liquors, to Swami & Son Corporation, doing business as Liquor World at 6 Milliston Road, and to approve the pledge of the license and inventory to Morgantis.
In the hours.
Well, the hours are going to be 8 to 11 on Monday through Saturday and 10 to 9 on Sunday. This is an all alcoholic beverages license, retail license. I'll get it straight.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. I'll poll the board to approve the transfer and authorize the pledge. Mr. McCaffrey, yes.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Germain, yes.
I just would like clarification of what the pledge means. I don't quite understand what the pledge is, that it's to Morgantis when this is a transfer from Morgantis. So I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Okay, well, hold on just a second. Now the hearing is closed. I will allow the conversation to clarify the motion. So if you could just go ahead and tell us the nature of the underlying theory behind the pledge, that would be good.
Yeah, that's fine. So a pledge is essentially it's a secured interest, so it's like a mortgage on a home. So essentially here, the seller is financing the transaction. There's a monetary consideration taking place. In doing so, the seller is acting as the bank, so they're financing the transaction for the buyer. What the pledge does is it just gives the buyer security, interest in the license itself, so that if, and God forbid, and I don't believe this will happen, if the buyer were to ever default on the loan that the seller is giving them, the seller, I should say, would have the right to take back that license. Now, that's also with a caveat that they're not just allowed to take back the license. It would then have to go back in front of the board, who would then have to reapprove the seller to take back that license itself. So it's a security interest for the seller who's helping to finance the transaction, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much.
I assume that for the sake of argument here, that if this were any other kind of business other than a liquor license, we wouldn't be involved in the mortgage, if you will. But I guess what you're telling us is that the appropriate statutes require us to approve that.
Yeah, right. So yeah, the ABCC obviously allows for pledges to occur, and because it falls under their umbrella, it falls under the town's umbrella as well, just because the town is obviously in control of regulating that license as well. So.
control is something that we rarely seem to have, but in this case, we have authority.
Yeah, authority.
All right, so.
Mr. Chair, sorry,
Yeah.
Lauren Barnes has raised her hand.
What would you like to say, please?
Hi, Mr. Chair. I think the question just got answered, which was I was just trying to understand why the town would be involved in that granular detail between the seller and the buyer, and what it meant for the town, and whether or not town council should be weighing in on that.
Thank you. At this point, I think it's straightforward that it's part of the liquor license transfer. So I have a motion on the floor. I'm going to go ahead and poll the board for the motion. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
The motion is carried unanimously, and we look forward to working with the new owner to have a wonderful, successful business in town.
Thank you very much.
Anything else you got to sign? Make sure you get in touch with Karen.
Got it.
Actually, you have to come in and sign.
Yeah, well, we have to sign something too, right?
Yes. So I'll have several things for you to sign after this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, our next item on our agenda tonight, thank you, is the approval of the 2020 Green Communities Annual Report. Hopefully Mr. Weiss is still with us.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, good.
We're not a full hour late, but we're late.
Well, this is very quick. We've done this every year for the last 4 years. I've come tonight to ask the board to authorize the chair to sign as the chief executive officer of the town, and to sign the Millis Green Communities Annual Report for fiscal year 2020. Basically, the annual report takes a look at all the categories of energy use in the town, buildings, the open space, the street lighting, and vehicle use, and water and sewer. This year, and we compare this to the base year every year, which is 2015, and this year our report shows a 17% reduction in energy use from 2015. Of course, that we have to put into the perspective that there was and still is, a pandemic going on. This largest reduction this year was a 32% reduction in fuel use by the town. That was because for 4 months, the school buses and vans were not used. But in spite of that, we still had a pretty good overall year of energy reduction. We have a new building online this year in the Clyde Brown Elementary School. I took a look at the energy intensity use. It uses more fuel, or just about the same amount of fuel as the old building did, but this building is 50% larger. So the energy intensity of this building has dropped considerably. So a lot of this reduction this year is from the school. But we also saw reductions in water and sewer, and I think a lot of that is the result of some of the investments that the DPW has put into its facilities and its buildings, and some of the motor drives over the years. So there you are. So we ask you to sign the, I think there's a sheet there. If you can sign it tonight, or when you next come in, we can submit that to the Department of Energy Resources.
Okay, but I pledge to you I will not come in and sign it tonight.
I understand.
Okay.
I will then go home and not stick around and wait for you.
All right. Okay. So this is just authorizing the chair to sign on behalf of the town.
That is correct.
And tell us a little bit about the actual report.
Well, this year the town used about 2 million kilowatt hours of energy, but that is of electricity. And since I can bring that up, see for myself, that is a significant reduction of about 600,000 kilowatt hours of energy. A lot of that is because of the efficiency that we have new lights in the schools. We have new lights here in the Veterans Memorial Building. We saw, of course, the traffic and street light reduction. We reduced that 44% since 2015. And a lot of that was because of our 2017 installation of new street lights, the LED street lights. So that's the vehicles. The police, the fire, and DPW have been purchasing vehicles. They're much more efficient than the old ones. The police department has gotten rid of a lot of those old Crown Vics, and they've got new SUVs, but those have idling devices on them. So what we've done is, and we've had, I think, 16 energy projects that we have done with community development, not community development, but with Green Communities monies. So that's close to, I think it's over $650,000 worth of improvements that we've done without, maybe a couple $1,000s worth of town funding. Most of that has come right from the state. So that's where most of that reduction in energy use has come from. And we've got another $183,000 worth of project investment this year as well, which will start in November. Again, some at the school, some here at the Veterans Memorial Building, some at the fire department.
Very good. Questions from the board?
Questions?
None. All set? Anyone else? So all we need is a motion to authorize the chair to sign the Green Community Annual Report.
I move that the board sign the Green Community Report as presented.
Let's authorize the chair.
Authorize the chair to sign.
They just need one signature.
Yeah, I just realized it's just the one. You're it.
Second.
Moved and seconded to authorize the chair to sign the annual report for the Green Community Annual Report. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously. All right, the next item we have on our agenda.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Next item we have on our agenda is really a conversation. This is a conversation that I would like to have with the board, which is just a preliminary discussion at this point, because I'm not asking us to make any decisions, but just to put out there the fact that there's another kind of evolution in the marijuana business based upon some new regulations from the Cannabis Control Commission. And Kate Federoff had offered to be here. I know she had a conflict, but I would just like to ask if town council is on the call.
I'm here, Jim. I am.
Wonderful. Very good. So the issue here really is, I'll try to just frame it and then ask town council to talk to us a little bit about, I'll call it the landscape. We have dealt with in our town several kinds of marijuana establishments or marijuana businesses, if you will, both with respect to medical and adult use. That includes a dispensary for medical, a dispensary for adult use, recent HCAs with 2 companies that are looking to come to Millis and establish grow facilities. We have one negotiation ongoing now for a manufacturer that wanted to locate in Millis as well. The common thread here is that all of these operations are what we would call brick and mortar. They come to town, they either build a building or occupy a building or modify a building. They do business here. Whatever they make or sell, they sell here or make here, including with employees who work here. This kind of business we're talking about now is a different twist on this, which is the delivery business, where organizations, I'll call them marijuana establishments or marijuana businesses, are in the remote delivery business rather than the brick and mortar business. So they can be in both, but at this stage of the game, it's a different animal. And, the question that we will be facing as a community is how do we deal with them what regulatory authority do we have to regulate them? And it's a little bit of a, forgive me, because it's a truck, it's a moving target. And I thought it'd be useful for the board for us to have a conversation with Attorney Fedorov to sort of give us the lay of the land here, and then have some conversation initially as to some thoughts about how we might proceed. So, Ms. Fedorov.
Yes, Mr. McCaffrey, thank you for having me this evening. So we're still in a little bit of flux, okay? The regulations are still in draft form, and as a matter of sheer fact, both the MMA and the MMLA, which is Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, are putting together comments on the regs, because although the CCC voted on these regs, there were then amendments to the revised regs, and so it's still in a little bit of flux, because I want to say when they were developing the regs, it wasn't so widely known as it could have been. So we're scrambling a little bit on our side. What it essentially does is home delivery of marijuana. And what the regs say are that if your town allows marijuana retail, then you can have marijuana delivered to your home. Now, what does that mean for zoning purposes? It might mean nothing. A delivery company can travel from town to town and deliver their marijuana, but they have to have only a host community agreement with the town in which they're located. So, which is also kind of a tricky thing, because their operations can be very varied. So I had one delivery company before the CCC put in another bomb, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, but when it was literally just you pick up from a marijuana retailer and you deliver to the consumer, when it was still limited to that, I had one entity come in, and in my brain, I had the idea that the delivery service is going to essentially be a station and then a parking lot for its trucks, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4, depending upon the size of it. So I was thinking more UPS type thing. This delivery company had a different operational plan where they were actually going to store the vehicles off-site at each deliverer's house or wherever, and they were just going to house in the particular town the security dispatch area, and so it would just be limited to essentially an office space. So already the picture had changed in terms of how do we wrap our arms around this in terms of land use. It's no longer a whole bunch of trucks in a parking lot. Instead, it's just an office. Then the CCC threw in this bomb, which I alluded to before, where it said, okay, not only are we creating a delivery license, we're creating 2 tiers of delivery license. One is, as I described it, where you pick up from a retailer and you deliver to the consumer. The other is that they can go to another type of marijuana establishment, pick up the marijuana or the marijuana product, like the edible or oil or whatever it is, and they can house it, warehouse it, and sell as if it were a retailer. So they can't have people come into the store. You can't walk in like a brick and mortar place, but they can become a marijuana retailer, picking up from either a cultivator if they're just getting flowers, or a product manufacturer to get finished products, house it at a facility for days or whenever, and then deliver it off to the consumers from there. So it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into the whole business landscape in terms of preserving the economic base for the brick and mortar retailers who were just going to use the delivery services to transfer their product. Now there could be competition with the brick and mortar retailers and these delivery services if the regs go through as written. So it becomes tricky for a place like Millis where you have a retail cap, because what the CCC has said is these aren't retailers, they're not in our definition of retailers, except for one provision which limits the number of licenses to a particular entity. So you're only allowed 3 licenses for license type. They consider for that purpose, that's a retailer. So you could have, say, 2 brick and mortar stores and a delivery license. But in all other respects, it's not a marijuana retailer. That said, how do we define it in our ordinance? Our bylaw, excuse me. I think we defined it as an entity that sells marijuana to consumers, which a marijuana delivery could theoretically fall in that category. So municipalities across the state are essentially scrambling. I know of 2 cities that are submitting letters to the CCC saying, hold on, CCC, give us at least 6 months so that we can wrap our arms around this from a land use perspective. And the MMLA is submitting comments, the MMA is submitting comments. I'm actually in a marijuana subcommittee, and the 2 subcommittees from those groups are meeting this coming week to talk about what we think some of the pitfalls would be. One of the major concerns from the lawyers in that group are, what happens if your car breaks down with a whole truckload of marijuana on it? So they're supposed to have security plans, but it's really not spelled out so clearly in the regs what happens in a situation like that. It's best practices and things like that, which the CCC, I guess, is going to decide unilaterally if it's sufficient, but it would be our police force that would be responding if they broke down in Millis, and we may or may not be getting community impact payments from those folks. So it's tricky, is the long and the short of it.
Okay, I mean, that's a good overview of what we're up against rather than making the kind of recommendation up against that we're going to have to deal with. I mean, it's much more complex. The regulatory framework that we have in place is made up to a significant degree by zoning bylaws, both for the medical and the adult use. And those bylaws town has adopted. We also have a zoning bylaw, like you said, that limits the number of retail stores and retail establishments or adult use establishments. We have licensing regulations for the select board, and we also have licensing regulations for Board of Health. We have special permit requirements that fall under the zoning bylaw so that there is regulatory authority over land use, as you indicated, from our planning board. This fits, there's an overlap here, but there's not a nice fit. So at some point, we need to work through what kind of regulatory framework we would like to adopt for our town, what's best for our community. And it seems to me the issues include, businesses coming in, but also we have partnerships with businesses that are already here or about to be here. And we have an interest in helping them be successful as well. So I thought it was complicated enough that we should start the dialogue sooner rather than later. And I think it's important for the board to sort of begin to think about it. Let's start with it. Other members of the board, do you have any questions for town council as to what the landscape looks like, what your concerns might be in the short run?
I do have a question, if I may, Chairman. It sounds to me, and I'm going to pose this as a hypothetical, that we have a growth facility coming into town. And we were assured they weren't going to be selling out of their growth facility. But it also sounds to me like they could just as easily establish one of these retail businesses licensed elsewhere and be selling into our town via that with their distribution system. So I'm just making an observation, and maybe I'm correct, maybe I'm not, but that's one observation I have. Number two, we have some people in town who made a commitment in opening their establishments based on the rules and laws that were in existence at the time. And I happen to be one who believes that we have an obligation to work with them to see that they're successful. And it concerns me that we're suddenly, out of the blue, about to be confronted with competition to them that's not a particular benefit to the town, but permits others to come in, sell, and the town reaps no benefit from them other than the cost of whatever they might presume upon the town, whether it's a breakdown or infringe. I look at the word and I'm careful about how I choose it, but infringing on what I consider the rights of individuals such as, and I cannot remember the name of the business, but what Ellen and others have set up in town. And that's a concern to me. We are about to open an opportunity, as I interpret it, that could significantly impact our revenues as a town, not just those of the businesses that set up in town. So that's my view at the moment.
Right.
And Mr. Jameen, I think, I think that's one real concern, both with private industry and to some degree the town, because we do reap the benefit of having a host community agreement. We have a sales tax that we've locally imposed on the retailers. And there's not real clear answers because of this change, or at least I don't have a clear answer, I'll put it that way, because of the change to allow them to house the product. Because, and Jim, you and I spoke earlier, I screwed up on one piece. So if, for example, I see Ellen, she's on the phone, but if, for example, there were a marijuana delivery company who had an agreement with Ellen to deliver marijuana, and they picked up the marijuana from Ellen's place, we would still get the sales tax via Ellen as the retailer, except for that was when it was just delivery, retailer to consumer. Now with the housing of the, or warehousing of the marijuana by the delivery company, and it's called, what is it called? Marijuana Wholesale Delivery Licensee. That subcategory of delivery, I'm not 100% sure if it's, I think it's their host community where they're housed that gets all the benefit, despite the fact that it's being delivered to Millis, or it's being delivered to, I don't know, pick another town, Medway. I don't know, no, I think Medway doesn't allow retail, but Brockton, some other community that allows retail. So they can travel throughout the state and deliver anywhere retail is allowed, or if the community opts into delivery service. And despite the fact that our police may have to respond, sorry, I don't know why I'm using my hands like that. Why our police will have to respond, we don't have the resources to necessarily deal with that because we don't have the benefit of host community agreement with them. So that's number one. Number two, to your point, right now, currently, and I think it's for 36 months, the delivery licensees are limited to social equity applicants and economic empowerment applicants. Now, when that expires, who is to say what will happen next? Is it going to be an Amazon and they're going to have a huge warehouse somewhere, and let's just pick a rural place, somewhere out in Western Mass or somewhere else, and they're delivering all throughout the state with their van? And then no one gets the benefit, but the retailers who have physically opened up shop in the town will be suffering the competition from those groups. Now, you can't help all of those scenarios, but it's a real issue in terms of viability for the folks who have established themselves in these various communities.
Can you hear me?
Let me ask Erin if she has something that she'd like to weigh in, and then I will ask you to comment now.
Okay, thanks.
Just one question. In our bylaws for zoning for the marijuana retailers, we have it so that 25% of the number of licenses issued within the town for the sale of alcoholic beverages not to be drunk on premises were sold. So 25% of the licenses can be marijuana. In our current configuration, that's what we have. We have 3 liquor retailers. We have 1 marijuana retailer. So what happens with this if I agree? I guess I'll back up a tiny bit. I agree with what everyone else has been saying so far, that, I certainly don't want it to hurt the business that we have established. I think if there's a delivery component that's fully vetted and approved, and that's part of that business, that may be one thing, but the overarching, like, Amazon scenario is a little concerning. So what does that not count under that bylaw? Would we then need a new bylaw, or would that bylaw cover the scenario?
So, and again, I'm not 100% sure on that, because there were certain questions that the CCC didn't necessarily answer. One of which, how are we interpreting this under our local bylaws? And if I were the town's, well, I am the town's attorney. If I were arguing this point for Millis, I would say, okay, well, always in zoning context, you operate by your own definition. And so, and I forget if our definitions of marijuana retailer incorporate what 94G and the regulations say.
Yes.
Or they do.
Yep.
So then I might say that means that you could have delivery irrespective of the cap, because the CCC has said marijuana delivery licenses aren't to be considered marijuana retailers. Now, whether or not Ellen will agree to that is something different, or more importantly, because I think 617 has a right of first refusal. Ellen's already here, it doesn't matter, but 617 has a right of first refusal. So would we have to give that option to them first? I would take a hazard to guess that 617 would say yes, but they're not social equity, so they can't get it. So it's not super clear is the answer, and there are several unanswered questions. One of the other things was, before you had the housing piece, the wholesale piece, or warehousing piece, excuse me, and the delivery company had to return the marijuana back to the retailer. Well, we have hours of operation that we set for our retailer. And so what if they get back from Timbuktu in, somewhere far away in Massachusetts, because they couldn't deliver that marijuana? They have to return it to the retailer. She's not open anymore. How do we handle that? So there were lots of questions that I think were unanswered, and that's what I have for now. I don't have full answers for sure.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one quick question? Is it possible to set up, you must register to sell that type of product in this town? So we know, number one, who it is who's going to be selling in the town. And number two, maybe we have to set up a guideline that says if you're going to sell in the town, you have to, the way they check into, say, Ellen's establishment, you have to register each sale in the town.
So the CCC has already said that you don't need individual host community agreements with each town that you deliver to. You just need a host community agreement with the town in which you're located. So your office spaces I described, or your warehouse, or your facility where you house your cars. So they've specifically said that in their regs. Now, whether or not the CCC had authority under 94G, which doesn't expressly contemplate delivery, is another question. And so then could we, create our own local regulations, which may supplement, not supplant, the CCC's regs? Perhaps, but I think it would be a real stretch, number one, to do it and have it be enforceable. Number two, enforcement. How are you going to figure it out? If they house their own marijuana, there is seed to sale tracking, but there would have to be a huge auditing process to see if there were sales in Millis, and if Millis has a local regulation that requires registration. It just seems to me a real Herculean task.
Okay. Ellen, you had something you wanted to offer.
A lot I want to offer. We need to take a breath here. And I need to give you a little history. The original delivery, first of all, there is delivery going on throughout the state right now. There has been for a couple of years, but it really took off this year for medical. I've been licensed to deliver for medical. I'm trying to hire some drivers. The CCC did a fast approval when COVID hit, and we got shut down for adult use. And they licensed all of us to deliver medical. There's a group in Brockton that's been delivering medical now. That is their whole program, is delivering medical, and hopefully nobody's from Brockton, because nobody wants to go to Brockton.
Oh, I'm from Brockton, Ellen.
Oh, you liar.
No, I'm not lying.
Oh, my God.
I'm telling the truth.
Anywho, all right, I take that back. This particular group is killing it. They're delivering all over the state. They don't charge a delivery fee, and they're killing it. Netta just bought 6 vans, and they're traveling the whole state for medical. So if you're a cultivator like I am, you can get a license to deliver medical. So now whether these groups, I don't believe that they're signing host community agreements, and whether or not a town even banned marijuana, it doesn't matter. You can deliver to any town and city in this Commonwealth. So for medical. All right, let's talk about adult use, because people are confusing the two. Adult use, okay. It's limited to economic empowerment. That's the whole thing about it. It's the same with the cooperatives, right? They're trying to give them some leg up. So it's limited to economic empowerment groups. They get a 3-year head start. It can be extended, and it doesn't. And the toll doesn't even start. The clock doesn't even start ticking until the first license is granted. Okay. When they first started this, the whole idea of it was so preposterous that I said to myself, this isn't going to work. It doesn't make any sense. They're letting people come. They have to have pre-orders. They've got to come to my place, pick up individually packaged apes, a joint, some gummies. They bring them into their van. They need another person. You need 2 people in a van. The van is completely tricked out with the alarms and the GPS and the insurance. I mean, completely tricked out. Then they got to make their deliveries. Now they're buying. They're not cultivators, so they have to buy from a cultivator. We don't even have enough product to support our own dispensaries. Do you think that we're selling to these? Do you think we're going to sell to them at half price or at? No. So they got to go out with their little store. They got to make sure that they sell it all, because like Kate said, if they have a joint left at the end of the day, they got to come back to my cultivation facility so it gets put into a vault. Okay. How are they going to make any money? Impossible. It was so ridiculous. And finally, they got so much bad press, they said, you know what? We got to fix this. They created this wholesale delivery service. Okay. To me, it's everything that a retailer is. You need to find a wholesale spot. You need real estate now. Okay. You think the CCC is not going to make them do everything as far as security and a vault and protocol? Are you crazy? They're going to have to spend so much money on their wholesale spot. Even though customers are not going to go to it, they still have to secure their product. So now these people, they're gonna come to my cultivation facility and they get to buy 10 pounds of flour. They could buy loose flour. They can go back to their wholesale spot and package it. They call it white label. They can put their own label on it, which I think is, it doesn't, none of this bothers me. I'm just telling you. None of it bothers me. Why? Because I control the supply. I still control the supply. All of the cultivators control the supply. So they come to me. Maybe I charge them a wholesale price as if they were buying hundreds of pounds, maybe because I want them to succeed. They're going to sell my already packaged product. They're not going to take the gummies out of my gummy thing, put it in. Doesn't make any sense. Then they have to spend on packaging. Do you know how much the packaging costs? And remember, folks, these are economic empowerment applicants. By definition, they don't have funding. So this is the only thing that makes sense. Now, my biggest question is, does it have to be zoned for marijuana? Well, yes. What, are they going to put a vault in their house next to an elementary school? No. Everything is going to be the same, I think. And if it's not in the CCC regs the same, then the towns are going to make it the same. You're going to develop zoning for a warehouse delivery service. End of story. They're going to be zoned down with me in the industrial park. And they're going to, like I said, their place is going to be completely inspected, completely. I'm not worried that, and like Kate was saying, well, what if they get a flat tire? Well, the delivery van right now for medical can get a flat tire. I mean, this is no different. This is no different. And it gives, personally, I'm just going to say this because you know me, I just say it. I told you that 123 or 617 or whatever the heck they're called, how many years has it been? Have you seen a shovel in the, have you seen anything?
We're not going to speak ill of our friends.
I know you're not, but I'm just saying, I'm going to say the same thing about this. It's still going to take $500,000 to $1 million. I don't think the economic empowerment crowd has any idea. I've said this from the get-go. I do not think they're going to be beating down the door of Millis to locate a wholesale delivery service. I just don't. And that's my undivided,
unbiased, unfiltered.
Unfiltered.
Mr. McCaffrey, through
Yes.
you, Ellen surprises me every time I talk to her. I didn't expect that answer.
Zero.
She doesn't surprise us, Mr. Chair.
No, it's zero. Price of admission is zero. But let me just say that, is there anyone else who would like to weigh in on this? I mean, this again is a conversation. I think that if we need to adapt zoning bylaws, we need to work on that. We have had an inquiry regarding Millis's position on delivery businesses. So it's not purely academic. Now, Chris, when inquiries come in, I can't tell whether it's going to be the first of 100 or just as one out of, and we'll never hear from anybody again. I don't know. What I don't want to be doing is being caught without a plan. And that's really the primary reason for the discussion tonight, is to make sure that we're all aware of it, the public's aware of it, and looking to us on the select board to come up with an approach. And if it's a zoning component, working closely with the planning board and the Board of Health to make sure that we have a regulatory framework that works for us and the businesses here, and legitimate businesses who want to locate here.
Well, you do know that the regs have not been finalized.
Right.
They're out for public comment. It'll take however long.
Only a few more days, though, right, Ellen? Like, they're voting. Aren't they voting in a week and a half or something?
I don't know the timeline. I'm sure that they're going to be exactly what they've already put out, because they never change them.
No, you're right there, yeah.
So you can
All such we say, yeah.
You can go online and print them out and read up on them. They're all highlighted, so it's easy.
Well, it's easy to read. It's not necessarily easy to understand what it means.
No.
And so, the question we have in the short run is whether or not, as a town, we want to weigh in and say, yeah, this is going way too fast. You got to give us a chance to think about it, which is the comment that council had made about some people are asking for some, delay here so that the local regulatory environment can develop a little bit. And that may make some sense. I don't want to be chasing I don't want to be chasing windmills, but I do want to try to stay at least a half a step ahead.
I'm going to tell you also that it is going to take months and months and months for any of these applicants to get through this process. I'm telling you, because the CCC has no idea, and there's no application been put in. It's going to take at least 6 months to a year, I think, well over a year before anybody gets licensed.
Okay. So another comment there?
Loring?
Yes, hey,
Sorry. Loring raised her hand too, and Kathy.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Loring Barnes, and I just wanted to propose that we include, if it's not already structured to do so, the chief of police, because if we are to move in the direction of accepting a delivery service, I think it's incumbent upon us to remember that they're not delivering pizzas, and there should be security components that are addressed. That's all. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I don't know how to raise my hand, sorry, I just say hello. But I thought I heard town council say in her third or fourth sentence that the MMA, Mass Municipal Association, is still having meetings on this, as is the Cannabis Control Commission. Am I correct in that I heard that?
Mr. McCaffrey, you want to step in?
Yeah.
So I'm meeting with a subcommittee of the MMA, along with the MMLA, so the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, this week to see if we want to submit written comments on the proposed amendments. The CCC is still going to meet. They have open sessions just like the select board, and they, after receiving public comments, will decide whether or not to vote these amendments up or down. To Ellen's point, they generally don't change once they put out those drafts, but we can try to suggest it. And then what Mr. McCaffrey was saying, and maybe that was after the sentence afterwards or something, there are definitely at least 2 cities that are requesting that the CCC at least hold the regulations for 6 months to give us an opportunity to organize city council meetings. It's much easier to pass zoning ordinances than it is zoning bylaws in towns where we'd need a town meeting. But we, unless we had a special, couldn't adopt any new legislation until May.
Phew. Okay, Mr. Chair, once again.
Yeah.
How about, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but that the Board of Selectmen, so that you're not getting inquiries, or Karen more likely isn't getting inquiries every couple of days about delivery services, that the board just vote to ban this, or whatever word town council uses, until the board receives something from town council or the MMA or the CCC stating that the Commonwealth has weighed in on this. Is that bad?
That's certainly a suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments from the board? Again, I hadn't intended that we necessarily take action today, but I wanted to make sure we knew what the lay of the land was. And I did mention the fact that we had an inquiry. It's not quite the same thing as inquiry every day. And I don't think, my concern about jumping to anything too quickly is that you don't want to have a real opportunity pass you by because you decided to do something and we didn't know all the facts.
Exactly.
My personal view is that as a board, we might want to consider joining with the MMA and these other cities and towns to say, look, this really is problematic that you don't give us the opportunity to think through what our local regulatory environment's going to be. Because, and whether the CCC goes ahead with it or not, I'd rather go on the record at this point saying, you've got to give us a break. And I didn't think of the 6 months. 6 months is not enough for us. Because if we're going to adopt something, it's not going to be till May. So if cities are trying to get 6 months because city councils can work, in a different timetable, cities and towns that are town meeting driven really need until June 30th. I mean, they do. So with respect to, preparing something to forward, to have town council prepare something for us to forward, is that the board's view at this point, or shall we just, move on to the next item? Again, I wanted to make sure we understood what the lay of the land was, and I think we've got some clarity, but still a lot that's unresolved.
Mr. Chair, I think from my perspective, there's still a lack of clarity in the whole process, but I like the idea of joining forces with perhaps some of the other cities, towns, the MMA, and to have town council proceed along those lines, keeping you, as the chair, informed of what's going on. Quite honestly, this is new to me, and I'm reluctant to put forward anything this evening. I haven't really digested what's going on at this point, but I do think what Ms. McGinnis and others have said bears some weight, and it doesn't hurt to at least say our board supports supporting our town council to seek a better understanding on our behalf.
Okay. Ms. Underhill?
I don't know that I'd suggest any kind of an action at this time either. It's not, I'm going to say the same thing everyone else has said. It sounds like there's still a lot to be worked out here. I certainly want to be prepared, though, but I don't know if doing anything now would really be helpful until there's more information.
Well, I agree that what I would like to suggest that we do, though, is ask town council to help us put together correspondence to go to the CCC. I'd like it to be coordinated with what others are doing, because I don't want to be out on left field here. And if we can agree deferring this to a time which enables us to get the information that we need to formulate our response is really important. For the notion that the CCC can issue a bunch of regs, or proposed regs, or whatever it was, a month ago, and creating, a little bit of surprise for those of us who are not following it every day, seems unreasonable to me. It seems unreasonable. And I don't want to say that the town of Millis is smarter than anybody else, but we spent a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of effort creating a regulatory framework which we think will work for our town. And if this is going to disrupt it without us having any opportunity to formulate a response, I think that's unreasonable. So, if the board does not object, I'm going to ask council to put something together for us, and then we can forward it on behalf of the town so that we can at least be engaged in the dialogue here.
I concur.
Okay. Works for me.
So, all right, so that's what we'll do. Kate, can you work with us to try and put something together that I think we'll be happy to sign off on? Not that it's going to necessarily solve all our problems, but at least we're going to go on record indicating to folks that, this is, whether the substance is bad or as difficult as I thought it might be, and maybe it isn't. But again, to have this thing come at you with weeks to deal with it, I think is an unreasonable burden on the locations. So, okay. If anybody thinks we're partners in this, the CCC must have missed the partnership part.
So the tenor of the letter is to say, we're neither pro nor con. We're not taking a position, but rather we need time to digest the information and create local legislation to address this new use.
Correct.
That's the tenor?
Yes, till June 30th.
Okay.
Because otherwise we can't, I mean, there's no way we can act if they give us, 6 months. It's only April, unless we call a special town meeting, which I don't want to have to do. Anyway, let's give it a shot. Okay. Look, very good conversation. I think it's good for us to try and stay ahead of the game here. Appreciate your participation, Kate, again. And those of you who weighed in, I think that's very helpful. And I wanted to make sure that we did notify all 3 of those who are licensees in Millis. That we were talking about this tonight, so I'm not trying to play favorites here. And so anyway, that's where we end up, and I think we've got some action step here without committing ourselves to too much. Okay, thank you. That concludes our scheduled businesses. Only an hour late. I'd like to move on to item number 20-233, Fields Project Contract. Mr. McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask that I believe you got the quotes. Am I here?
Yep.
Yep.
We hear
Okay.
you.
Yep. The first quote is for fences by Stephen F. Panic, and that's for the Fields project. He was the lowest bidder, and that was in the amount of $61,350. And Stephen's done work. He was actually the contractor that installed the fencing around the tennis and pickleball courts for the permanent building committee and the school project. So I don't know how much you want to get in detail on this. I mean, this has already been all approved. This project was approved through the CPC with funding with $25,000 that came from the planning board. I did meet with the finance director and the town administrator, and they both agree with the funding sources. We had to eliminate a short section of the fencing because with the 2 appropriations, the original bid was over by $441.51, and we did eliminate about 150 to 200 feet of fencing on the parking lot side of the Clyde Brown. With a school project, they installed a new fence, and they just tied it into the old fence that was there, and it's on the outskirts of the field itself, so it has nothing to do with backstops or dugouts or anything like that.
So you're looking for us to approve the contract for the fencing only?
Nope. There's 2 of them. There's 2 contracts that you need to approve that, so the town administrator can sign both of them. They're 2 separate companies.
Karen, can you pull up the memorial? There's a spreadsheet, a small spreadsheet, which lists...
Yep, hold on 1 minute.
Not the ones with the quotes on them, but the summary. That's not it.
Nope, that's not it.
The Spooktacular Pets are still coming back.
It was just there, yes. Hold on. Nope, all right. Nope, that's not, sorry, I'm going backwards. Hold on. Go slowly, sorry about that.
I think it's like page 29.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, okay.
There you go.
Oh.
Nope, keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Hold on. It's 29, let's try it. There we
There
go.
it-
Now I get it to look the other direction now.
I think you can right-click and
I was
rotate.
gonna say, I should just be able to rotate it, correct? Okay, rotate clockwise. There we are.
Okay.
It's a miracle.
So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then I'll allow my colleagues to also ask some questions.
Okay.
The first question is that we received the bids for the fencing. It's always interesting, of course, to me, and of course it's shown here, is that the same job, one firm thinks it's $125,000, and the other firm thinks it is $61,000.
65.
$65,000.
There's a lot of work out there.
So I just want to be sure that we are comparing apples with apples. these two bids are comparable for comparable work.
All three
And
bids.
there's one in the middle, of course, there's one in the middle, I don't mean that there isn't another one. But.
Yes. So all three bids were, we had a site visit with all three companies, and they were given all the exact same work. The three backstops, the dugouts, they were, Mr. Fence was given the exact bid from the Drake Corporation. We just whited out everything, and actually that's how we did it with Mr. Panic also.
And we've done work with the Panic Group.
That's correct. We've actually done work with all three of them, but he just, the latest one was, and if you notice, Mr. Chairman, the 60, good, because he.
Go ahead, yeah.
This question, it's $65,800. And we went back, and that's when I met with the finance director. And Karen, if you can scroll up a little, her writing was there. When we added up the two, we noticed that's where we came to that $4,441.51. I went back to Mr. Panic, and when we had the pre-construction meeting the last Wednesday, we did eliminate a section of the fence to bring it into contract.
So you're asking for the 61,358.
61,358.50. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
We updated that, but I didn't update this one.
And then the field work would be going to Diamond Athletic.
To Diamond Athletic for $38,200. We do have just one bid. That was the Drake Companies and Sports Turf. We had Sports Turf. We had them come out, and they just didn't want to bid on it. So that still meets the criteria for three bids. Diamond Athletic Turf. They've worked in Millis. They worked on the Millis Little League fields, and I believe I'm not sure, but I think they're the ones who did the baseball diamond, new baseball diamond at the school.
Okay, so the total is what?
$38,200.
No, the two of them together.
32 and
109.
Yes.
what was the fence work, Jim? 61 something in the end you're looking for?
61,358.50 and 38,200.
Which is 109,558. I added it right. And the available funding is $75,558 from CPC.
Correct.
And $25,000 from the planning board.
Correct.
So we have enough money.
That's correct.
Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Germain?
Not right now, thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
No questions.
So are we ready to make a motion to approve the awarding of these?
Chair? Sorry,
Yes.
Kathy McGinnis. Is there could I ask the town administrator if there's a contingency fund on this for contamination? I'm just joking.
Hold it. No. Next question. So is there a motion?
Yes, I'll move that we agree to the proposals first from, well, in the total, I come up with is 99,558.50.
That's because you added it right.
I was going to say, I got that as well, Pete. I didn't want to say.
But that's why I've been going back and forth wondering, did I get something wrong? Okay, and so
Jim's a
that's
lawyer.
That's why we have two people do it, right?
Okay,
99,558.
to do work on the fields by Diamond Athletic Turf in the amount of $38,200, and by Stephen F. Panic, fences by Stephen F. Panic, in the amount of $61,358.50 for the work to be done on the fields at the town of Millis.
Second?
Yes.
Been moved and seconded. to approve the awarding of the contracts for fences for the fields at 61,358, to fences by Stephen Panic, and for the field work to Diamond Athletic Turf for $38,200. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Next item is approval and signing of the presidential election warrant. So we have to sign the warrant telling people that there's an election. Let me just pull it up here.
I can pull that up as well. Should be right here, and now I gotta go back the other direction. Hold on.
And basically, it's for election day, right?
There we go.
3rd of November 2020 from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial Building. Includes electors for president, vice president, senator, representative, councilor, representatives in the general court, Norfolk County positions, including register of probate, county commissioner, county treasurer, and the sheriff, as well as 2 petition questions. Obviously, this is an election of great importance. I know that the town clerk's office is working diligently to try and make sure that we have safe opportunity to vote on election day, but there's also plenty of opportunity to vote early, or by going to the town hall and voting early, or by absentee ballot. So I would make a motion that the board approve the election warrant for the presidential election. Actually, I guess it's the warrant for the 2020 state election, which includes the president.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the warrant for the 2020 state election. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Tremaine?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously, and we'll ask the board members to sign. Hopefully can do it tomorrow. Okay, so...
You actually have a little bit of time for that, but yes, whenever you come in.
Sooner the better.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the warrant, and we're going to have some discussion about an article, a couple of articles. So I think what we'll do is make a motion to open the warrant, and then we'll have the town administrator walk through the items with us, including the ones he wants to add, and then we're going to vote to close the warrant and sign it to make it officially final for the town meeting in November.
You want to go out?
So I'll take a motion to open the warrant.
I move that we open the town meeting warrant for November 7th, 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded to open the warrant. All those, I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried. So the warrant is open. Now I'll ask the town administrator to walk through with us the proposed warrant articles, and we can make any changes at this point, but after tonight is the last crack, so to speak. So Karen, in particular, can we sort of walk through these as he goes, so we can display them on the screen? Good. Okay.
Thank you. So just walking through these one at a time, and we can address any updates or adjustments or additions. The first article, it's unpaid bills. And as you can see, we've included all the unpaid bills for FY20 for a total of $17,246.48. And feel free to stop if you have any questions for me as we go through.
Yes, I have a question. Last year it was about 6,000. This year is 17,000. What is there anything I should read into that?
Well, a couple things. Some of it I think has to do with just the COVID situation and a lot of other things going on as we're trying to wrap up the year. Certainly, we'll be working to bring those numbers back down into this fiscal year for the sheer number of unpaid bills. Other than that, I wouldn't read anything too deep into that, other than there's just been a lot going on and a lot to track, and a lot of the vendors turned in their bills fairly late.
Okay. All right.
Article 2. This article is for the FY21 operating budget adjustments. There are several sources where the funding will come from. It is anticipated to be derived $302,616 from raise and appropriate. Transfer from marijuana impact fees, which is within the free cash, of $95,940. Transfer from the ambulance revolving fund, the sum of $85,000, for a total sum of $483,556 for all these transfers. The main driver of this is to restore the staff hours, primarily in the Veterans Memorial Building, back to FY20 levels, as well as restoration of library expenses, which were cut. Also, there was a request from the Recreation Committee for $10,000 in additional funding to assist them in getting through this fiscal year, as COVID has hit them particularly hard. There's also a request for $35,000 for the cybersecurity initiative. I think the board discussed that at a prior meeting. The need to look at a broad-ranging town-wide cybersecurity review beyond just the enterprise fund areas. So we're requesting general funds for that. Also, as was anticipated at the town meeting back in June, certain police salaries, namely the school resource officer, as well as the marijuana stipends within the, as part of the police contract, would be funded from the host community impact funds. So we have $85,140 for the school resource officer and $10,800 for the stipends. And then we have funding from the ambulance revolving fund. This is for overtime for the SAFER grant employees, as well as expenses from the new employees. The things that the grant wouldn't cover were overtime costs and clothing allowance and equipment. So those are the town costs in relation to that. That represents all the requested transfers we have for the operating budget in the fall town meeting.
So if I may, go back to the table. Basically, this proposal is to restore the level of service that we reduced in June, when the June town meeting, for the general government, public safety, Millis Schools and Education, Health and Human Services, Culture and Recreation, and that is for a total of $257,615.89. So we made the reduction of about $450,000 in the spring. We've learned that the state aid has held up, and local receipts are holding up. Real estate taxes are holding up. So we are asking the town to approve a restoration of full service as of December 1. And as you can see, we will nevertheless have saved about $200,000 on this line here by reducing the budgets for July, August, September, October, and November. Recreation Department, again, this is we're trying to maintain the infrastructure of recreation, given the fact that there are significant reductions in programs that they've been able to offer, and the fees that are paid to from those programs to offer them. So this is a request from the Recreation Committee. It's really an investment in keeping a steady state in the Recreation Department until we can hopefully get back to a situation which is fully funded by, well, largely funded by users. We've talked about cybersecurity, and the marijuana impacts are helping us here, and fortunately we got some money from the ambulance revolving fund to help us with costs for these additional firefighters. So questions from the board on this item?
I have no questions.
Nor do I.
Okay. Again, of course, this is the board's discussion. We're not taking a vote on any of these things to support or not. It obviously is being presented to the Finance Committee as well, and will be discussed at the Tri-Board meeting on Wednesday. So this is the proposal. It doesn't necessarily end up to be what we actually, support. But this is how the warrant will read. All right, Article 3.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the listing of the capital items in Article 3 is per the recommendations of the Capital Committee. You'll see there's a total request of $328,714 in capital items. A large part of that, it's the split of funding between the general fund and the enterprise funds, depending upon the item being reviewed for purchase of an approval. We have the turnout gear. That's 14 sets of turnout gear for the fire department at $43,330. We have another item for the fire department, the SCBA bottles, a total of 12 of them for $12,000. Fire hose for $15,000. We have a pickup truck for water and sewer use at $44,023. We have a dump truck to be used by all areas of the DPW, the water, sewer, stormwater, and DPW. That's a total of $108,586. And we have an I&I study under sewer for $105,775 for a total of $328,714. Just to touch upon, because it's really connected, is Article 4. This is also a capital item, but because it's a first year of a 3-year lease, it's listed as a separate article because it requires a 2/3 vote versus a majority vote. Is a request for $18,000 for the payment of the first year of a 3-year lease purchase of a police cruiser. And so we've added that in as well. So again, these were after review and recommendations from the Capital Planning Committee. I don't know if there are any questions on Articles 3 or 4.
This is the Capital Planning Committee presented these. They did present to the Finance Committee last week, right?
Yes, they did.
So again, no one's taken a vote on these, but this is what's been proposed based upon their scoring system for priorities. There will be a copy of their report in the warrant or in the Finance Committee report.
In the flyer,
so
yeah.
It lists the projects that we're not going to be able to do, which is, is equally as important. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick comment. I think it's important for anyone who reads this to note that with respect to the fire department, these are must items. In other words, they either are dated because they have to be replaced within a certain period of time, like the SCBA bottles, even the hoses. And I don't know about the turnout gear, but at a certain point they do have to replace that. So I just think it's important for the community to understand these aren't being done just because we want to add some more items to the inventory.
Well, this is part of a recurring refreshing, if you will, of the equipment. It's also something that the fire department has, presented over the years. So this time last year, we would have expected this to come up again this year because of the rotating through the equipment to make sure it's still usable by the firefighters. Some of the trucks and things are way beyond their useful life, but we'll hear more about that when we talk about the position that this board may take, as well as any presentations to the Finance Committee. Okay, Article 5.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Article 5, as the board is aware, is doing funding of $600,000 for additional funds for the DPW building project. I know there was some discussion at the last meeting about how those funds would be raised. I do believe there was a chart in your packet that outlined the different cost allocation that's being recommended for the general fund for water, sewer, and stormwater. The recommendation for the allocation at this town meeting for the additional $600,000 is $100,000 from the general fund, $200,000 from the water enterprise, $200,000 from sewer enterprise, and $100,000 from stormwater enterprise. And if you look at the totals at the bottom for the project and what each area would be contributing, you'll see that back on June 29th of this year, we did transfer $135,887.97 from prior projects, which were funded by the general fund. So if you look at the total based on this scenario, the total funding for the project would be $1,535,887.97 from the general fund, $1,500,000 from water enterprise, $1,500,000 from sewer enterprise, and $100,000 from stormwater. So we feel this is an appropriate breakdown of source funding for this last portion of the project. So this is what is being recommended to you and the Finance Committee and to town meeting.
Can I ask, I probably should know the answer, but what's of course a little bit I don't know what the right term is. Article 5, which is the only article which asks for money, doesn't denote the amount of money.
Yes, that is that's how bond counsel has put together the article. That's generally how they forward these articles. I would say that when the Finance Committee's report and flyer go out to the public, it'll be very specific as to the amount that's being sought, as well as the funding sources. So certainly from a public standpoint, we certainly want to put those numbers out there as well as the recommended funding sources. But you'll see that a lot with these debt articles. The bond counsel generally does not want to put the amounts in the actual article. Obviously, the motion will be very specific. I think I did forward the bond counsel's recommended motion to the board this afternoon. So you'll see what the language is for that, and I think that will translate into the Finance Committee's packet, which will go out to every household in the community. But I understand that it may be a little disconcerting to not see an actual number in the article, but that's generally how bond counsel instructs us to place the article in the warrants.
Yeah, I think it's important for us, particularly reflecting on the Springtown meeting and the fact that, I don't know what will happen in the fall, but there's some new residents moving into town. They would like to know what's going on, just like the old residents would like to know. And I would like this board to consider perhaps a one-page handout of some sort describing this project, why we need more money, and the funding sources so that it's clear. Now, people may not want to approve it that way, but they won't have to ask, well, where's it coming from? I think that's important. Now, whether and how we want to work in coordination with the PBC on this in terms of the rationale for the additional funding, but I do think this is an item that we should, obviously rely on what the Finance Committee is going to present, but also perhaps to provide a little bit of additional information to the taxpayers for this item, because it is it is an issue that I suspect people have questions about.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Germain.
I agree with what you're saying, but I would like to see a little more additional background as to why the funding sources have been selected as they are, the amounts coming out of each funding source, so the community has a better understanding as to why water and sewer are contributing as much as they are to this process versus the general fund or stormwater or whatever. I just think it's important that people get a better understanding of what's happening there.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I didn't say it as well as you did, but it's not just why, but where it's coming from. Yes, what the funds are, why we are recommending the allocation that we're recommending. I think we do have an obligation to folks to put that forward more clearly.
Thank you.
So let's work on some kind of something. It would not just be a handout, but, in addition to that, something that we might post on the website and whatnot so that people get a good feel for this. It's difficult in this environment on any number of projects to fully vet these ideas with the public because it's hard for them to participate. I know some folks have been able to tune in on the Zoom and whatnot, but I think it's more incumbent upon us to provide some written guidance here for this particular item. And I'm not trying to suggest that the Finance Committee isn't thorough in its approach, but, essentially we are the proponents of this. And so I think that if we could provide a little bit of extra context, not only on the amount, but as you say, the amount, the total amount of the project, where it's coming from and why, I think that would be helpful.
Chairman McCaffrey?
Yes.
Is this something that can be printed at the time everything's printed and mailed, rather than something that is handed out? I don't know. I haven't been in on the planning meetings for fall town meeting, but I know in the spring we were trying not to handle much.
That's a good point. Yes, good point. Let's see if we can coordinate it in a way that allows us to distribute it and just have perhaps something available to anybody who wants to have it rather than the handout. You're right, because that was part of the public health discussion last time. And it's still part of the discussion. Okay, thank you. All right, Article 6.
Yes, Article 6. Article 6 has been placed in the warrant in the event that Article 5 does not pass. I think it's important to note that when the DPW building project was put together and put forward, it was for some very important reasons having to do with the health and safety of the people that worked at the facility and visited the facility. And if the town decides not to move forward with the funding of the project, there will need to be other funding set aside for temporary office space and facilities for the DPW to meet all state and federal requirements. And Article 6 would do that through the either raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $275,000 for the payment of the first year of a 2-year lease for temporary office space for the DPW. So again, this article would only be taken up if Article 5 were to fail. But it's important to have in there as it's not really an option for the town to do nothing moving forward with the project. It's really looking at whether or not the town's ready to move forward now with finishing up the funding for this project to moving forward, or would rather delay it for a couple of years before moving forward and to have a short-term solution, which again, would not be very cost effective, but it would be a short-term addressing of the issues until the town was ready to move forward.
Well, we did the same thing with the original article.
Yes.
Because we're trying to find a way to get a place for our workers to work that's safe.
That's the key.
Yeah. And if Article 5 is not passed, then we need to have a fallback position, which is what this is. Okay.
We also should note, I think, Mr. Chair, that this is an annual payment. If the longer we defer, these payments continue to keep our employees safe year by year by year. And in fact, there may be other costs associated with deferring this building.
Yep. Article 7.
Article 7, again, we discussed this at the...
I'm sorry, Mr. Kuzinski, the Article 6 was the new one. That one we
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
That's correct.
Go ahead. Yep.
Article 7, again, this was discussed at your last meeting. This is to fund a wage salary study of municipal positions at the Veterans Memorial Building. Originally was discussed a $20,000 amount. It's been adjusted down to $15,000. This particular item is timely since the town will be going into negotiations with the SEIU, which is comprised mostly of employees who work in the Veterans Memorial Building. This would certainly, such a study hasn't been done in quite some time, and this would assist in moving forward in negotiations in a more knowledgeable and I think appropriate manner to have actual numbers of a study in front of the board and to be able to speak with and negotiate with the unions in regards to this. So that's why this item is on the warrant for your consideration.
Okay.
Article 8 is to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sum of $40,000 for tree trimming and removal. Again, has been expressed by the tree warden a number of times, and I've had discussions with the DPW director in regards to this, that there's still a strong need to move forward with some accelerated tree work in town to address trees that are getting to the point where they're going to be dangerous for the community and will need to be taken down over the next 6 to 12 months. This would fund that activity.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
For Article 8, I feel like I remember the amount being different. Have we vetted the amount?
Yes, the amount was $60,000. It is now at $40,000. We feel that based upon the fact we are getting assistance from Eversource with the tree trimming, and we do want to keep an eye on our overall finances, that $40,000 would be an appropriate number, at least to take us through into next summer. We could certainly consider more funding if the need is there at the Springtown meeting in May.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Tremaine.
I think, though, Mr. Kuzinski had said prior to the last town meeting that we had about $15,000 or so that he could use toward tree trimming, at least until we got to the November town meeting. So if I add those together, we get pretty close to the $60,000. I just want to make sure that we understand it was 60 or 65.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. Yes, that's correct. Article 9 is, again, the board is familiar with this article. It's been on there since it was on the draft warrant back in the spring. It was pulled off of that warrant because of the uncertainties surrounding the meeting and a desire to keep the meeting fairly short. And this item would actually move the date of the annual town meeting to the first Monday in May. So we'd move it back a couple of weeks. So that would be just a week prior to the annual election. Again, the board's discussed this before, I believe, as far as the reasons for that, so that those individuals who put together the budget and the different articles are still all in their seats at the town meeting for really to make sure we have that experience and that those individuals that are informed on the matters fully at the town meeting to participate in those elected roles. Article 10 was submitted by the planning board for a Millis Center Economic Opportunity Overlay District. I think that was discussed a bit at your last meeting. That is unchanged. That's the entirety of the warrant of the 10 articles before you that I'm recommending, and this has been reviewed and approved as to form by Town Council and Bond Council. And I am recommending that the board vote to approve and sign the warrant as presented this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a clarification, if I may, on Article 9. In the second part of the sentence, it says, "and the annual meeting for the election of officers." Is that considered an annual meeting?
Legally, it is.
Yes.
That's how it's addressed from a legal perspective. It may seem odd. I know when you look at it, it does seem a little off, but that's the way it's presented.
Welcome to the 18th century.
Yes, exactly.
Welcome back to the 18th century. Okay, so again, we're not taking any position on these things. Any other questions from the board? If not, I would take a motion then to close the warrant.
I'll move that we close the warrant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the select board to close the warrant for the fall annual town meeting. All those in favor? I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried. So now we'll just take a quick motion to ask members of the board to sign the warrant.
I move that we sign the warrant as just agreed to and presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, directing the board members to sign the warrant as presented for this fall annual town meeting. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes. Ms.
Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried. So now we have another thing to sign. Tomorrow or whenever. I'm assuming that this final warrant is being forwarded to the Finance Committee and the School Committee so that they can see where we stand in terms of the warrant. So if we can get that out to them, that would be helpful.
That will be forwarded out to them.
I'm sorry, and also make sure the planning board knows that we have included their article in the warrant.
Yes, we will forward that out tomorrow.
Okay. All right, the next item on our agenda is an item that I inserted, which I'm going to probably delete, which is a remote meeting policy. We had some issues where some folks in the community were feeling as though they weren't getting some of their issues resolved. But I think that's pretty much taken, it's now old news. I do think it's important for the board to encourage our various boards and committees to continue to do their business to the extent that's practicable, including holding remote meetings. If they need help or assistance in setting up the meeting, we're happy to do that. But I think the sense of the board would be that it is important for us to try and execute those meetings so that we're continuing to do the town's business to the best of our ability. I don't know if my colleagues would agree with that, but hopefully you do.
I absolutely concur with it. Not only that, if anyone in the committee has problems, either setting up a Zoom meeting or trying to understand how to get into it, having problems with their computers, whatever, please feel free to contact me. Either I can help you or we'll get our technical support company to assist you. But please don't let the technology overwhelm you.
Okay. Council advised that it would probably not be a good idea to issue some kind of policy because it would just run afoul of state legislation. So just encourage everybody on committees and committee chairs to try their best to hold these meetings because it's important for us to serve the public of the town of Millis. Next item on our agenda is a discussion on the social media policy. This is one of our goals that the board has set, along with the goal of having procedures and policies. We have adopted the procedures and policies, and I think we were going to take a look at our existing social media policies to determine whether or not they could be updated and modernized. And there's two sets. One is that applicable to employees, and another is the set that's applicable to elected officials and board and committee appointments. And so I was hoping to ask for a volunteer among those who might be the clerk of the board to take point on this. Having not been involved in writing the other two, that maybe a fresh set of eyes would be helpful.
I would love to.
Well, that's delightful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it would be extremely helpful. And you know, I think it's important to look at not only the policy, but to think of the policy in the context of what do we publish on our own social media sites, if you will, but also what our board and committee members might post on other sites and what they ought to watch out for. No one is trying to restrict their freedom of speech, but they got to be careful that they're not somehow trying to represent the town when they don't have the authority to do so. So I think there's a couple of components to this. And last but not least is any thoughts you might have on, effective implementation of our policies is also helpful, because I don't favor something that is aspirational. I favor something that we can actually execute.
Okay, I agree.
But I'm delighted to be educated further. So thank you very much.
I did put volunteered in quotes, just for the minute.
Well, I don't mean to be flippant about it. I mean, we're trying to step up and take accountability for the goals that we set. Appointing the Energy or Enterprise Committee tonight, getting someone on point for social media. We've already adopted the policies and procedures. I do intend next week, one of the policies and procedures that we adopted was that if we're going to make a change in the policy, we let people know the meeting prior to the time we're going to actually propose something. So we left unaddressed the publication of board backup material prior to a meeting. And I would propose that I would come to the board at our next meeting and propose that we authorize the posting of the board agenda as well as the board materials by 4 p.m. On the day of the meeting. I wouldn't say which day because it could be a different day, but in advance of the meeting so the public has it available. We're not for COVID. People could walk in the office and pick up the material and sit down for the meeting, but since we can't do that, I think I'd like to shoot for the 4 o'clock of that afternoon. Part of my rationale for that is that even though we have a policy that we get all the material as board members before the weekend, anybody who's on the board today or whoever served on the board knows that stuff does come in a bit late now and then. So we'd like to try to be complete. So that is something I will bring to this board at our next meeting for adoption or discussion and adoption. But I was trying to follow the protocol that we'd already set up, that I put people on notice, or anybody who wants to propose a change, put the other board members on notice prior to, so they have time to think about it. Anyway. Last item on the agenda, because we don't actually have the minutes, right?
I have them, but I didn't distribute them because I got busy, and I apologize.
All right,
We can look at them on the 19th.
The last item then is a conversation around annual licensing fees. This is in anticipation of fee renewals for the coming year on the list of businesses that we issue licenses for, from a liquor license, entertainment licenses, and whatnot. So, Karen, could you just brief us a little bit on what you've been hearing from other towns, as well as the information you put together for us in terms of what the licensing fee situation actually is?
Indeed. As you know, as you just said, we're coming up to our regular renewals. This is just for select board licenses. We have other licenses, obviously. I don't know if other boards will follow suit, depending on what you decide tonight. Board of Health issues licenses, etc. This would be mainly for alcohol, any kind of alcohol licenses. The board also issues Class 2 and Class 3 licenses for the sale of vehicles, common vitular to restaurants, entertainment licenses, junk and metals dealer, retail marijuana, amongst others. The surrounding towns seem to be, the majority seem to be reducing the fee by about 25%. Some are for all of the, and I keep getting more information in, some are reducing fees by 25% for next year. Again, to help with COVID and to kind of offset some of the financial loss some of these poor companies, businesses have endured. The 25%, some have just done it for the common vitular and the alcohol. Some have only done it for actual liquor licenses for restaurants because they felt that the retail liquor stores didn't really endure much of a loss. Some are doing nothing. So I guess it's entirely up to the board as to how you want to handle it. My 2 cents is I would definitely suggest doing some sort of reduction for the restaurants, as I think we all know they are the hardest hit. The common vitular license is only $100, but still sometimes it would just be nice probably for them to know that they're supported by the town. The alcohol license is far more. And I did do a spreadsheet here that shows a little bit. I did it for all of the licenses because, again, the board can vote however they want to move forward or not move forward with this, with a 25% reduction and 50% reduction. We typically collect almost $50,000 in licensing fees a year. A 25% reduction of all licenses would bring us to about $36,000, where a 50% reduction would bring in about $24,000. So that's where it's at. And again, this was all just to help people that were affected. This came up for people that were affected by the COVID pandemic so severely. And I would argue that even though some of the lesser licenses, like I said, the common vitular, the lesser amounts here, the $100 or the $75 fees, they were still hit. A lot of the entertainment licenses. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thinking tiredly here, sorry.
Okay, I'm glad you brought this forward, because clearly we have businesses that have been impacted. And of course, some of them have, paid for annual licenses this year where they weren't even open for 2 or 3 months.
Correct.
Or 4 or more. Any thoughts from the board as to just the idea, or any particular direction you'd like to go?
I may comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, yeah.
I think for some of them, when it's $100, it's more an act of good faith on our part. I think it's a useful thing from the community, for us representing the community, to say, we recognize that it's been a period of hardship. I realize it hasn't hit evenly to all the businesses in town, but that doesn't matter. The reality is everyone's been hit to a certain extent. And so I think it is useful to send that message that we appreciate the fact that, first of all, you're doing business in town. And secondly, that you contribute to the town. And to that end, we need to help out a little when we can, whether it's having openings on the sidewalks or whatever, so that you can keep your businesses open. And I fear that we may be heading into a period where it may be more difficult for some of these businesses to continue as the winter progresses. But at any rate, I think it's worthwhile to send that message. And whether it's 25 or 50%, I'm not sure which is better. It's not an enormous hit to our budget to accept either one. So I'm open in either direction, but I think we ought to send that message, and that's my view.
Mm-hmm. That was actually one of my questions, where it would fall on the budget. Like, how do we rely on this money specifically for something? If there's no big impact, then I would absolutely be in favor of adjusting that due to COVID.
Mr. Chairman, I can certainly say that all these receipts and revenues go into the general fund, so there's not a specific expense that's related to it. They help support the entire operation of the town. But I do agree from a personal standpoint that by doing this with, you would certainly help those businesses, many of whom were the hardest hit through the pandemic, which we're still in. I think, if anything, the only establishments which may not have been hit as hard would be the all alcohol package stores, because they weren't really closed for any length of time. But the restaurants and most of the other businesses were hit pretty hard. So it really, it wouldn't be a huge hit, but it would be certainly, I think, appreciated by those businesses that are struggling a bit through the pandemic.
And Mr. Chair, I would agree. I think the only ones that that weren't hit were the package stores and then the wine and malt, perhaps some of the convenience stores. That would be the rest of this list. I would say all had some sort of impact. I don't know about the Class 2 and the Class 3 licenses, if that's much of a hit, but like I said, if it's just a gesture, that's a $200 fee a year, and I think just the gesture, and so people know that this is, Melissa's a great place to do business. We're trying to encourage economic growth here in town. I think it is somewhat of just a nice gesture if we are financially able to do so.
And the recommendation, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation would be whether the board decides, if it decides to go with a 25 or 50% reduction in license fees for certain types of businesses as listed in your packet, it would be for fiscal year.
Will be for calendar year.
I'm sorry, for calendar year 21. And the recommendation would be only for businesses currently in operation, not for new businesses, but for businesses currently in operation.
Well, okay. I mean, I certainly think we ought to be thinking about making a contribution. It's more than symbolic. I mean, we're trying to do business. We're trying to promote business.
Right.
On the other hand, every little bit helps on our end of the spectrum.
I mean, we were hit too, so yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
It's not like we're just rolling in, though. So I'd like to try to get it. There's a simple answer. Across the board, some percentage. There's a little bit more targeted answer, which is to say, okay, carve out a couple of the businesses which we believe have not been seriously impacted by the COVID situation. I'd like to do something. I'm a little, personally, I think that, my guess is that, and it's just a guess, is that the liquor stores really did not take it did not impact them that much. Now, I could be dead wrong. Their sales might have held up, but there are additional costs of cleaning and everything else went up. So, yeah, you know, my gut feel is that we should do this for all our licensees except the package stores and the stores that are selling alcohol, because I just don't believe they have the same impact.
Well, I will note that the liquor stores were the only ones, if you remember correctly, that were allowed to remain open the entire time, including retail marijuana, which was closed. So, right, they were physically open, so they should not have lost any, and it's no offense to the liquor stores. I just think it is what it is.
Mr. Chair, I think that when I look at it, though, the alcohol restaurants took a big hit.
Absolutely.
I don't care how you slice it. The restaurants took a big hit. And I think from that perspective, and maybe the amusement, I have no way of knowing on that, but I do know the restaurants. And so those two categories, I think we ought to consider in one way or another a little bit of relief. But that's my view.
Mr. Chair, I was going to say, Mr. Chair, the automatic amusements were absolutely hit. I think I don't even know if they've reopened yet, or they're just starting to at this point. There's 3 package store licenses. They come to a total of, where are we at here? They're $22.50 a piece. So there's 3 of those that I would say you could pull out. You could also pull out the package store wine and malt. And there are 3 of those.
Wine and malt, there are 5.
Well, there's 3. There's wine and malt at a restaurant, and there's wine and malt. The first 2, if you look at, are Lilac House and Ryan Family Amusements. That they can only serve wine and malt, but they have to be open to serve it. They're not restaurant, they're like bar type of atmosphere. Where the wine and malt package store places like Mobile or Namaste. That's one of them. So I would say it's only those 6 establishments, and then, like I said, maybe the cars. I don't know about the car situation, but everybody else has definitely been hit.
Yeah, I guess my feeling is that perhaps we exclude the package stores and whether they sell wine and malt or all alcohol, and we include the others. With that, I think I can feel more comfortable going with a 50% reduction because it's not quite as expensive.
And then the restaurants would get, I'm sorry, Jim, the restaurants would get both the common vitular discount as well as the alcohol discount, so that would help them and potentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's easy for me to say that $50 isn't a lot of money. That's not my money. So I think cleaner if you go to a restaurant and say, okay, we're going to give you 50% off all your licenses, whether it's the alcohol, the common vic, the entertainment, the pool table, the whole 9 yards. I think that's a cleaner approach.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, absolutely. For us to process on this end, it's absolutely a cleaner approach.
So what? There are 6 we're taking out.
You're right. It would just be the alcohol package store, alcohol package store, and alcohol simply wine and malt.
Yeah.
It's those that sell stuff.
Only.
Right.
Yeah.
Package store, exactly.
Okay.
I don't know, Erin, what's your thought on this?
I think I could go with it. I mean, I would agree that the liquor stores haven't been hit as hard. I wouldn't say that they haven't been impacted, though, in terms of having extra COVID expenses with precautions. I think Karen had mentioned, like, cleaning or whatnot. But I do think that is a fair argument to exclude those and then give, I think the 50% would be lovely for those businesses.
Okay, well then, I'll make a motion then for us to consider. The motion would be that with respect to the board's annual licenses, that we reduce the license fee for 2021 by 50%, except for alcohol package store, wine and malt, and alcohol package stores.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I just recommend that the board also vote that the fees would revert back in calendar year 22, unless further action is taken by the board, they'd revert back to their levels.
Temporary reduction for 2021 to return to its original and upright position for 22.
I'll second that also.
I'm putting
Or
that.
so-
I'm writing
So
that.
moved and seconded. Further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried. And Karen, thank you for proactively bringing this to us. I think it's an important thing for us to do.
I do. Thank
Okay,
you. I think it
folks.
was a great choice.
We've now reached a point on the agenda where I'm going to poll the board to go into executive session. Going into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate, 61A parcel 5C Ridge Street and 61A parcel 326 Orchard Street. Upon concluding the executive session, we will reemerge and adjourn the open session immediately and conduct no further business. So I will poll the board for going into executive session. Mr. McCaffrey, yes. Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you all. And we have to go to another Zoom, right?
You do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Good luck.
we gotta do.